Hey, Andrew.
Yes, Steven?
You know how we romanticize the days of going out to our local video store and sifting through endless amounts of movies, searching for our favorite films, and maybe even finding some hidden gems?
Oh yes, I know it all too well. That used to be my favorite thing to do. Unfortunately, everything is online now.
Well, what if I told you that there was a place online where you could get some of them same thrills as going to the video store?
Are you talking about Orbit DVD?
I knew you knew what I was talking about. Orbit DVD is located in Asheville, North Carolina, and online with OrbitDVD.com, they bring you everything your physical media heart desires.
Yeah, they have an awesome website that stays up to date with the latest releases from all of your favorite boutique labels as well as studio releases. Not only do they carry American labels such as Criterion Collection, Severin Films, Vinegar Syndrome, and Warner Archive, but they get routine shipments on imports from companies such as 88 Films, Arrow Video, Imprint, and so much more.
And with the option to sell or trade your used copies for cash or store credit, they really bring that video store vibe to you. So go to OrbitDVD.com and stock up on your Blu-rays.
And tell them Chasing Labels sent you.
Welcome to another episode of Chasing Labels. I am your host, Stephen Billings, and with me is your other host, Andrew Cabral. How you doing, man?
Doing good, Stephen. Doing good. I'm always doing good, I guess, regardless of what's going on, I guess this is just taking some time to talk about movies is the cure-all for anything that ails you, I guess.
It can be. It can be.
I mean, for me, it's always been a safe haven, so maybe it's a safe haven for people listening as well. But yeah, we are back here once again with another, I was going to say action-packed episode, but I guess that's appropriate. We've got not only a couple of guests here, we got a whole slate of stuff that just perfect stormed at the end of the week. Just everybody's just
it was like the labels were trying to say, we don't want you to be prepared at all. They literally dropped everything in the last couple days, I feel like.
Everything and I was like Thursday or Friday, the rest of the week, nothing.
Yeah.
And it's always that last week.
And I had time, but I have a baby, so, watching movies and having a baby in the room at the same time isn't always like you're taking it in. But she was she did a good job for me she did a good job.
Nice.
I was actually able to watch like 6 movies. And I was like,
sweet. That's pretty
good.
good.
I feel amazing.
Yeah, that's a hell of an accomplishment. I mean, I tried to watch 6 movies in a night last night, and I got to 4, and then I passed out. So
that happens.
Didn't quite reach the goal.
Yeah,
didn't quite reach the goal. Granted, I started watching at 8 o'clock at night, so can't really fit in too much in that time frame.
A lot of the movies you have to read too, so that's like extra,
Yeah,
your eyes.
I decided to start marathoning. Well, something we're going to talk about soon, but I think we should probably transition over to our guests. And Steven, you do the guest intros a lot better than I do. So
he always makes me do this, and he knows I suck at it. I used to be good at.
I'm never prepared. Oh,
I would be so much better if I wasn't just before the podcast dealing with a bit crying baby, so I could be clear-headed, or even this podcast, which nobody knows, is that we were having some tech issues. So now I'm all flustery, but I'm going to do the best I can here.
Steven, you know what you got? You have good improvisational skills.
I don't. Stop building me up. But I'm going to go for it. Okay.
Into thinking.
Okay. So with us this week, finally, we had had to switch some schedules around. It was hard to, we're both busy. I got a baby, and these guys are busy just doing their thing. But we got 2 guys that are the co-founders of Canadian International Pictures. We have Johnathan Doyle and David Marriott. How you guys doing?
Pretty good. We're good, man. Yeah. Thank you both for having us on.
Yes, we have since your label started at the beginning of this year. We've been, of course, watching all the partner labels and the ever-growing partner labels just keep showing up at OCN, and your guys' label has, I think, really just started to, hit people's I talked about this, I think, maybe a few episodes ago. When that Buster Keaton Rides Again came out, I think people just really took notice really fast. I think all your releases have been really interesting so far, but when that one hit, I think caught a really wide scope of people's attention when it comes to film fans, not just people that are maybe interested in looking into more Canadian cinema, but like, Buster Keaton. I mean, he's, a staple of a lot of, people that are into art cinema, silent films, all that stuff like that. And yeah, you guys have been just doing great work. And so, yeah, I just...
Very much so.
Yeah.
Very much so. Yeah, that release sent shockwaves through, I would say, the movie collecting community, for lack of better terms. And that was the one that was like, it was selling out fast, like really fast.
Yeah.
I remember when we did the episode covering it, it had already sold like crazy. But of course, Canadian International Pictures came on the scene earlier this year with a couple of releases that, of course, we ended up covering here on the show. But I don't know why we're doing all the talking. Maybe we should actually let them explain all of this in real time, because they were there on the ground floor.
Let's start out. So we'll start. I do want to get into each of your backgrounds a little bit before we get into Canadian International Pictures. So let's start with John. So talk about a little bit about your background before you got into Canadian International Pictures.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of have the pretty straightforward film background of anybody my age. I think I grew up in the 80s watching movies incessantly. I basically grew up in a video store, like kind of literally, because my mom actually owned a video store. And so I hung out there a lot when I was a little kid. And then I ended up, studying film. That's where I met David. And from there, just did a lot of kind of like film journalism, programming, worked at a bunch of festivals. And film is just, no matter what I've done, it's always been a big part of either my career or it's kind of been pretty active in the background.
Yeah, and you've done a lot of program at TIFF. You've done some programming at TIFF and other places like that.
I did some kind of like peripheral, not actual programming at TIFF, more like, I think I was called like a programming associate or associate programmer or something like that. But, involved in the programming department a little bit. And I was involved with Fantasia for a few years. And that was a pretty defining experience. And, been friends with David for a long time. And, our kind of like different film activities and interests have kind of run parallel, and it kind of seemed like sooner or later we'd probably get together, do something like this.
When you were doing Trash Palace as well, which sort of directly feeds in some sense to the work we're doing with CIP.
Yeah, like there was a really cool cinema in Toronto called the Trash Palace, which was a small cinema. I think it still exists in some form, but back in the day it was like they'd show 60 millimeter prints every Friday night in this like small space with about 50 seats. This guy called Stacy Case opened it, really interesting guy. And I was just one of the people involved with programming films there. And, it ended up being like a real, TIFF in Toronto is a canonical Canadian films end up getting highlighted there a lot. But the Trash Palace was a great place for like exploitation, kind of under the radar films. And it had the same kind of flavor as what we're doing, I think, in some ways.
Yeah. Yeah. When it comes to programming and things, what are some of your favorites? How do you like to go about programming? Is it all about thematic? Is it sometimes about act? Do you like to do acting themes or actor themed or like that? What is your favorite type of like setup for? Well, the
weird thing about programming for festivals is I always found that it was less about like what do I want to show, just because of the kind of roles I had, less about what I want to show and more about like here's a bunch of films. Sort through this and like what stands out, what's interesting, what would you recommend, what might pair with other things we have lined up, Beyond that, like as for actual like programming and curation that we're doing for CIP, it's more just a process of, we've got this very clear kind of restriction up front. It has to be Canadian, pretty much has to be like 60s, 70s, 80s, or 90s. And then it's just about films that kind of jump out at us as really, distinctive, memorable, exciting.
Yeah. I mean, and that can be sometimes just like in filmmaking. It can be limitations can be nice. It can help keep things and help you focus on something so that you're not, getting too, spread too thin. If you're looking everywhere for something that you think is great, then maybe you'll overthink it and you'll miss something.
Yeah. It's also the thing about having like a Blu-ray.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Like, I think about having a Blu-ray label is there might be a bunch of films we want to release, but for whatever reason, it's not possible because either we can't acquire them, film materials aren't available. So there's always a kind of combination of like what we're putting together and getting out there right now and what we're kind of slowly trying to make happen in the background. And there are a lot of films that are, they might come together 5 years from now, but they're kind of gaining momentum in the background.
Oh yeah, we hear about that from a lot of people all the time. There's stuff that people have been holding on to for years, just trying to get the materials together, get the, tie up the rights issues if there's a rights issue or something. Yeah, it's got to be one of them things where patience is tough. Like you got to have patience to be in this game, I guess, and to just always have something lined up. You have to really plan ahead to really get this, like, to keep things up. Now I know the partner labels don't always, not every partner label, there's sometimes where they miss a month here and there, but for the most part, you guys have been releasing something every month. So yeah. But David, please, let's go into your background. We know that you are one of the co-founders of Arbalos. So please talk about your background, please.
Yeah, so we should localize ourselves. So John's in Toronto. I'm talking to you from Los Angeles, but I was born in Montreal. Went to Concordia for like film school, which is, as John's saying, kind of where I met him, and was sort of like making films and presenting films there. And then moved to Los Angeles and went to grad school at UCLA in their kind of restoration archival program. And then out of that, helped co-found Cinelicious Picks in 2014, and sort of working there in distribution, restoration. We were doing some first run. And then a group of us sort of spun out of Cinelicious Picks and formed Arbalos in 2017. And now A. Tushinari, who's our third partner in Canadian International Pictures, and myself run Arbalos then and sort of currently. And then, over the course of the pandemic, John and I were sort of doing a lot of movie nights and really just sort of like, like this on Zoom, really kind of like just getting in the swing of a movie nerddom again. And sort of out of that was the germ for doing CIP. And then sort of, around the same time, because I'm Canadian and A isn't Canadian, but he spent a lot of time in Canada sort of growing up, and the acquisitions mandate for Arbalos is very sort of all encompassing. Like it's really any kind of film that we like a lot that we think needs to be championed. If the thing's already in the canon, if it's already got a release, other people are doing that. We kind of like to focus on stuff that we can sort of help bring either into the spotlight for the first time or back into the spotlight. And we've been talking about doing something that focused on Canadian cinema for a long time. But then, John and I started talking, we started talking to A, and it became very apparent very quickly that there was just so much that was sort of like untouched and unrepped or had no profile outside of either a specific province in Canada or the country itself. And so, in pretty short order, we realized it's like, this should be its own label. Like we have enough here where this could be like a full-time thing, and it should be incorporated and based in Canada because we're doing Canadian film. And so that was sort of the genesis of that.
Yeah, there's definitely a whole, it's one of them things like, I never thought about it, because I think, we work, American films work in Canada a lot, and sometimes you forget that a lot of stuff's happening up there, and what is considered a Canadian film, what's considered an American thing. And it's like, now that there's this label that's like, these are Canadian films, and here you go. Here's some of the ones you've never heard of. And that's what excites me and Andrew so much. Yeah,
that's very true. Being just a history buff and just being someone who's fascinated with the history of film specifically, is you don't hear a lot about specifically the Canadian film industry or the history of the Canadian film industry. So what I think has been kind of maybe a side asset to Canadian International Pictures, whether you guys intended this or not, is we're seeing like what it's like for what Canadian films look like in certain eras. Mm-hmm. Whether it be the 60s, 70s, 80s, whatever time frame the film comes out in. And I don't know if that was just kind of an intention by you guys, or if it's just like a byproduct.
I mean, I think those are a lot of the films that really stand out. Like the 60s Canadian films are really interesting because, I mean, for one, I don't think they're that well known or appreciated in Canada. Like they're overlooked even here. And I think people in general in Canada look at Canadian films and think, oh, they're just like American films, but not as good. But, even if that were true generally, of course, the best Canadian films are going to be, worth taking a look at, I think.
Yeah, when we did... sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, like when we did like our third release is a film called The Mob, or La Gamique is the French name, is Jacques Godbout's sort of like Quebecois crime film. and sort of just that sentence, Quebecois crime film, like people have no context for that really. Like even most of English language Canada really doesn't, you know. And so it works on a couple different levels in terms of presenting this to an audience. It's, you know, number one, we're really proud of the set itself we put together. Number two, you know, there's a sort of an enticement because you're like, what does that mean? What does that even look like? And then number three, the film itself is just like great. Like we really love it. We really want to champion it. It's like a quality film front to back and very distinct from what a gangster film looks like in other cultures. You know, like it is also unique by virtue of it being out of Quebec at that time and in that place. And so it's sort of a fun thing that it can be almost like a, you know, like a domino reveals or whatever, you know?
Yeah, was the, you know, Canadian film history something you guys studied while in school? Like, was it something that you learned along the way, or was it something that you guys kind of, I don't know, lived with being from Canada? It's very odd because the U.S. film history and U.S. kind of Hollywood is kind of in its own bubble. So I've always said it's like people don't really learn things outside of the Hollywood. So it's almost like, do people in other countries learn about their own film history? Because every country seems to have a unique film history that we don't really learn about here unless you go out and seek it.
Yeah, that's funny. I mean, there actually were mandatory Canadian film classes in at least in the grad program. I did undergrad and grad film programs. But there was the Canadian film class, but I don't think there's any overlap with what I covered in that class and what we've released, because so much of what we're trying to do is, you know, we have good working knowledge of Canadian film history, but we're not necessarily trying to release the films that we love. I mean, hopefully we'll get to some of them or loved going into this. A lot of it is about trying to discover new films. And, you know, something like The Mob or La Gamique, I don't think either of us knew what that film was going into this, but it just, when we got to it, it was just clearly we need to release this. And, you know, it might not be for everybody, but it's exactly the kind of Canadian film that we want to uncover and get out there.
Yeah, one of the you know, I unfortunately I haven't grabbed it yet. It's on my list of many things to grab. But one of the interesting releases you had, one of your early ones, is the other French New Wave, Volume 1, because I think that's a clear example right there where, you know, we're talking about I would say people that have maybe studied film, we hear about the French New Wave, so that's another culture of film that we know about their kind of you know, film industry of sorts. But, you know, you guys take that and you're like, hey, but there's French people in Canada, and it's like this is the other French. You know, I love that twist on it. And I can't wait to eventually get that release so I can check them out. But I think that's an interesting way to maybe like catch people's eye, and get people on board with checking out these type of films. And could you say anything about these films, because I haven't watched them yet, that do they have any kind of correlation with the actual French New Wave?
Yeah, well, I should say like packaging them as that idea of calling it the other French New Wave was John's idea. And I think it was like a really inspired one, because that's even earlier in the history of those are like French Canadian Quebec cinema films that are even like, those are like the antecedents for like what then became like the industry of French Canadian cinema sort of more in the 70s. So films like The Cat in the Bag, like Le Chat dans le Sac is usually kind of seen as being like one of, if not the first, like narrative feature film to really kind of like start building this industry. The director Gilles Gros had done these really kind of path-breaking documentaries before, and that one, you know, and John, cut in here anytime please, is like very much has like has inherited the aesthetic of like the French New Wave, like that there's like the jump cuts and the time shifting and things like that.
Yeah, but
then it also sort of infuses it with all of the kind of language politics that defined Quebec, especially around that time. And then the performances themselves are very specific to Canada. So it's this kind of really beautiful and inspired and gorgeous sort of like hybrid. And then something like The Merry World of Leopold Z or La Vie Heureuse de Leopold Z is sort of like about a snowplow operator's day before Christmas Eve. And it's just, it's the holiday film everybody needs and doesn't know that they need yet. Like it's
I'm gonna get this. I'm gonna get it because you know some of these earlier CIP releases I don't have yet, but I got a few of your releases.
We covered them, I believe, because I
remember
we cover
everything.
I think I watched all the movies in the set.
Unfortunately, I think I actually did watch everything.
I think I did. You know what? They were not easy to track down to watch. I think I watched 2 out of 3 of them. I watched the first. I'm just backtracking on my letterbox to see what I've actually watched. But there. What is interesting about, I don't know if this was also kind of an interesting fact, but a lot of the films you guys as put out were utilized as like educational films in Canada, so they can be found like on like educational Canadian websites if you dig deep enough on Google. And I just found that to be just a fascinating thing.
Yeah, well, that's sorry. Go ahead, John.
I was just going to say, like, a weird thing early on. It's like we've released many NFB films. That's actually the majority of our releases so far. That's the National Film Board of Canada. Our original plan wasn't for that to be like the first 6 or 7 releases that came out. It's just there were delays with things like Minefield and the Amityville Curse, and so we released all these NFB films consecutively. And the thing with the NFB is, in addition to the features we're releasing, they have this they're actually probably better known for this huge archive of documentaries and short films, and sometimes educational films. And so at some point pretty early on, I mean, we were starting with, like, on our first release in the Ernie game, we're just releasing films by that filmmaker alongside the film. And then at some point we're like, wait, we should release something else as a kind of like prelude to the film, the way they would have back at the time. So then we added Cosmic Zoom kind of in the 11th hour on that one. And then it just became a really fun addition to all those releases. Like some of those discs, like Don't Let the Angels Fall, has a film about Expo 67 that is not connected to the film at all, except that the film kind of alludes to that faintly, alludes to Expo 67. So it just ended up being this kind of fortunate thing where, like a company like AGFA sort of has access to like the something weird vault, you feel like, or archive. We've got this amazing AGFA, NFB archive that we can dip into and release obscure short films and educational films when possible.
Yeah, totally. And because it's the National Film Board of Canada, like they're obviously historically really plugged into like educational institutions. So that might be why you find some of these things on those sort of like older streaming sites or catalogs or whatever, because that's like obviously a big part of like how that organization was sort of built out.
Yeah, I wish the U.S. would think of film as more educational.
I guess so. I mean, we do have like the National Registry and stuff like that.
But they're not. They don't have their own streaming site or something.
I get it.
Where they're like, you can go over here and watch these movies because they're educational.
I guess. I guess so. I mean,
I'd sign something for a library.
That's also showing.
Platform. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, I know, right?
That's also showing like the mindset of difference between, I guess, like, I don't know. I'm just generalizing culturally here, just the Canadian mindset of using film as an educational tool versus in the U.S. and Hollywood, movies are typically for entertainment and, profit and things like that.
That's an ongoing battle I've talked about for so long, is that our biggest issue with just audiences, people, getting people to go see newer films is just, we don't see them for the same reasons anymore. It used to be more about discussing topics and things like that. Even getting in, people weren't scared of politics back then, and people were okay with seeing that in their films, and it created conversation and, made interesting things pop into your head, made you think about things. Now people don't want to think about anything anymore. They just want things thrown in their face, the flashes of light and superheroes with capes,
escapism,
and that's fine. And that's fine, but it's like that can't be the only thing.
I mean, we grew up in the era of literal escapism. 80s and 90s just filled with science fiction, action, fantasy, and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's kind of what kind of the bedrock of modern cinema really is to a certain extent. But we're getting way off topic. As we're not.
No, it's actually really relevant to what we're doing, because I feel like 60s and 70s films, as much as there's always the spotlight on, films with star actors and like celebrated auteurs and everything, anything that's kind of totally unknown that's from the 60s and 70s, I think is in real danger, obviously older films even more so, of being kind of just forgotten. Like a lot of these films that we're releasing from the NFB, they were readily available to stream for free in Canada. And even as people who love Canadian cinema and are very open to watching anything, we hadn't seen them, So there is that feeling like there is a need for somebody, whether it's us or anyone else, to identify films that are worthy of rediscovery and giving them like the limelight.
Yeah, it is sort of that problem. Well, I think there's two things. Like, it is amazing that the National Film Board exists, and it's a huge asset, and in no way do I want to like in any way besmirch them. But I think there can be, because we're talking about this sense of like educational films, there can be, I think, a mistaken sense that it's sort of also like eat your vegetables sort of stuff. But when you look at the things that we're doing, or you look at the work that they're doing now, but especially the work in the periods that we're talking about, 60s, 70s, like they hold their own with any sort of like new American cinema sort of thing. Like they're much more on that vibe. I mean, obviously they're specific to what they're talking about in Canada or whatever, but like the overall thing of it is that energy. So like if you like the new American cinema, you'll probably like a lot of the stuff that we're doing from the NFB from that period. But I think it's a problem when you have like it's a boon for access because the NFB is streaming all of these things, but there's very little sort of context for that reason. It's like this avalanche of stuff, and that's great. And that's sort of the thing with streaming in general. And where physical media can be really exciting is sort of like we get to shine the light, but then also have essays and bonus features and commentaries and things like that that really contextualize what the film is and why it's important. And I think that's doubly important for sort of like Canadian stuff that most people don't have any sort of background in at all to begin with, especially sort of in the States.
Yeah, very much so. I don't think a lot of people even know how much influence, influence that Canadian cinema has had on American cinema, specifically from just its actors and actresses and filmmakers coming down and bringing
David Cronenberg. Cronenberg's the man.
I know Cronenberg is Steven's favorite. That's my favorite.
What I was getting release at some point. We will release Avatar, right? Like that's a Canadian filmmaker. James Cameron's from Canada.
Yeah.
So
James Cameron,
there are a lot of films that are either star Canadian actors or are made by Canadian directors that just have never been perceived as Canadian films because they're distributed by studios.
Very much so. I mean, there's so much. Yeah, you guys are shining a spotlight on a kind of dormant part of cinema that I don't think a lot of people are aware of at all.
And please don't.
I know I really wasn't.
Please don't release Avatar.
I don't like Avatar.
Disney I don't. I mean, technically, I mean,
are we sitting on Avatar money, John? I didn't realize.
Yeah, I was just saying, you guys got the money.
You personally sitting on.
If you want to
get on that.
If you want to release a press thingy like at April Fool's Day saying you're putting out Avatar as your, June release, just as a joke, then do that. But please, just let Disney
cut this part out.
Do whatever they want.
To spoil the.
Sorry.
Yeah, don't want to spoil the release.
Let me write the timestamp down.
I think True Lies. There's still no Blu-ray.
Very true.
There is that.
That's been one of the biggest lies that we've been told as collectors for years, that there was a True Lies Blu-ray coming. We've been promised that for many, many years, and still nothing. I think even now because I'm pretty sure even that and The Abyss.
I was going to say The Abyss too. Yeah.
Those are two of his films I just have not seen the upgrade, and now they're in the hands of Disney, I think. I'm not sure.
Who's holding them back? Is James Cameron?
You know what? I from what I've heard is that maybe it's James Cameron wanting to do like a full, you know how he's always tinkering. Maybe wanting to do like a full remaster, full restoration, all the bells and whistles and whatnot.
Because who's going to see it in 3D after, it's...
Well, that's the same thing that Steve and I bring up all the time with someone like a Peter Jackson. For many, many years now, we heard that we were going to get new Blu-rays of Dead Alive as well as Heavenly Creatures. And he talked about that, I don't know, like 6 years ago, and then so far
there was supposed to be a set. There was going to be like a set with all of them in it,
with all of his early work, and it just never has come to fruition yet. Yeah. And I talk about this with people all the time, and I think the deal is that when it comes to all of his stuff, he does all of that work in New Zealand at his company, all that restoration work and all that things, and he's always got so many projects going. I mean, they just remastered Lord of the Rings for like the 5th time, and Beatles documentaries and whatnot.
You know how long that movie is? That one movie.
But does he tinker? One of those guys where it's like, what if this was blue now? Like, is it better to?
Oh, I mean, there's been a big controversy with the new 4K release of Lord of the Rings, where he changed the aesthetic of the movies with new color timing and new color palettes and all this kind of tone changes and whatnot. And people, of course, got upset because people have been watching these movies for like 20 years or whatever. Yeah. And it's just, it's the same. It's like the whole George Lucas effect, the changing and all that kind of
Andrew
stuff.
still owns all of it.
Yes, I do.
Well, it's a part of history.
It's his favorite.
That's why I know they look different.
That's like the great nightmare for any kind of like, speaking for myself, like in the restoration field. It's like we have, with either company, Arblos or CIP, have yet to encounter it, thank God. But like, that thing where you have a director come in and just like, why don't we change everything?
Well,
And it's like, what the hell do you say?
yeah,
But
well,
like that's
actually, this kind of
keeps me up at night.
yeah, it's kind of I guess transitions into the work that you guys do. I guess more of the kind of technical nuts and bolts things, in terms of your acquisition of a lot of these movies and what type of condition are they in when you guys find them? Because I know for a lot of the stuff we cover with Vinegar Syndrome, OCN, et cetera, when we find them to try to watch them for the show, they are in worse for the wear condition in terms of
Mm.
what's available to see. So, how was that process for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the reasons why we started with the NFB, and we've also worked with this company in Quebec, Elephant, that restores many films, um, is that there are already high def masters available for us to work with, and with the NFB releases, um, we're not in a position to do our own new scans of those films or remasters. They do their own restoration work in house, so it made sense to start there because it's just time wise it was ready to go. But we do have a whole bunch of restorations that we are kind of in the early stages of, or even past the early stages of. And luckily in Canada, there's Library Archives Canada, where there are like original camera negatives of, I don't know how many films, but many, many films. Like all the time we're seeking out films that we want to release or that we've acquired, and the negatives just sitting there in great condition. So that's really lucky.
And one of the nice things about doing films that aren't necessarily like the biggest classics in the world. Hopefully, after we're done with them, they become that. But like those negatives are usually in pretty good condition because they haven't really been touched for a real long time and weren't touched that much in the first place. Like a lot of these films didn't have like massive theatrical releases even in their prime. So that's obviously tragic for the films because we believe that they deserve X, Y, and Z bigger audience. But from like an archival and a preservation and restoration standpoint, you end up with original elements like John's saying, like original camera negatives, optical negatives, mag for audio. Like you get all these things that are in really, really good condition, especially if they've been at a proper archive all these years. So that's kind of that's been a real boon for the restorations.
That's a miraculous thing because oftentimes, if the case is that these films don't do well, in exhibition, they just get lost in time. They don't get saved because there's no more use for them in the public market. They just become, they degrade, or because of they're not properly stored or things like that. We hear horror stories of that all the time. It's nice that a lot of the work that you guys have put into all of these, a lot of that work has already heavy stuff has been done already. You don't have to go and do these heavy reworks of all these films, and they all look great from what we've seen so far. I mean, the quality of these releases are fantastic, as with all of the work done by a lot of these boutique labels. It still baffles me how amazing all of these labels make these films look, when a lot of them have kind of just are either were barely released on VHS or weren't released ever. There's always those stories that you hear. And I don't know what the home video market was like in Canada back in the day. So I'm not sure how much of these films actually ever saw the light of day in a home market release. I'm assuming Amityville's Curse, I think, was like a straight to VHS movie to begin with. Anyway.
Yeah, that did really well on VHS in Canada, and I think everywhere. But most of the NFB films, I mean, some of them like Forbidden Love, which we released, that did have, I think, a VHS release. Mm-hmm. It might have had like an institutional DVD release, but that's like something that was more for sale to like academic institutions than.
Yeah, it's like more of like an MOD sort of thing.
Yeah. But most of those NFB films haven't really had that much of an kind of active life on home video in any way. So yeah, that actually was a big part of our starting point, was just how do we get films like The Ernie Game out on physical media, and not just The Ernie Game, but all the other films that are on that set, because there are some like legendary films like the Leonard Cohen documentary on that disc, which is more famous than The Ernie Game and more celebrated than The Ernie Game.
Yeah, what I was going to say earlier was that I think that, like you were talking about how a lot of the restorations look really good because they just weren't in circulation a lot. And I think that also is another layer of what you're, not only in general, your label is it definitely introducing people to things that are kind of undiscovered, but like they weren't even discovered originally. You know, like when they were out the first time, they weren't really discovered, and now it's almost like you're putting out new movies. You know, like some of these movies just never really were seen by anybody, and so it's like you guys are getting really fresh. These are really fresh, like almost not seen films, and you're putting them out, and it's like it's great. It's a great thing.
No, it's funny you say that. Like that is exactly sort of, and that's also how we have always approached sort of the Arbalos title, sort of on the other side of the fence too. Is sort of like, yeah, these are films that like just did, for whatever reason, like did not have their moment and deserved it. But you end up essentially releasing brand new films for all intents and purposes. And as we move into year 2 of CIP, we'll have more of sort of like a theatrical presence for some of these things in tandem when they come out, but more streaming. And then especially when you start to add those other pieces to it, all of a sudden you might as well be releasing a new film. Like it's almost immaterial, like the production date almost.
Yeah, like something like Don't Let the Angels Fall. It has sort of historical importance because it was the first Canadian film to compete and to be in competition at Cannes. But in our research, like there's nothing about it anywhere. Like it was really hard to find any kind of acknowledgement that it even existed. Really, even we had an essay written for the release that was by this woman Cheryl Grace, who wrote a book about Timothy Finley, who wrote the script. But her book doesn't even include any mention of the film. So it's just a strange thing where you really feel like if we don't release the film, I don't know what it would take for this film to actually get some sort of acknowledgement.
Yeah, we were talking about that.
I wonder how you get out. Yeah, I was gonna say, I wonder how you guys even find them in the first place. I know you go to like a registry, in Canada, but it's like sometimes I'm like, these films seem so obscure. I don't even know how you guys even uncover.
Yeah, how is that research done? Like, do you guys just have a list of movies and it's just like pick one out?
Let's look at this one.
Well, it's such a fascinating thing because there's very like outside of, and this is obviously kind of a generalization, but really outside of like genre cinema, so much of everything else that's happened in Canada is really sort of like untouched when it comes to like a special edition Blu-ray release, or really even any kind of just like putting some muscle behind creating like larger awareness for it. So once we kind of realized that very early on, it was almost like overwhelming, like how many amazing films there were that like we were the only ones that were sort of seemingly interested in doing, and we knew there was an audience for it. So, within the first, I would say John, like 6 months of us even talking about doing it before we launched the company, we had like a comprehensive spreadsheet of like 200 titles alone that were just like, all right, this is here, elements for this are at LAC, this with the NFB, and we just sort of keep adding to it. And the only reason it's not 600 is just because we had to start releasing stuff. Like there's just so many amazing films that again, like really are no one else seems to be doing what we're doing with them. So all of a sudden it was just a treasure trove of material.
And if you're doing like the legwork to just find all the films that kind of intrigue you or seem like they have potential, sometimes it's because of like an actor who's in the film or a writer who is involved or any number of other, it could be the subject matter, it could be anything. But if you just kind of chase all those leads and watch all the films, you are going to see a lot of films that aren't very good. And the ones that kind of rise to the top are unmistakable, like, at least for us, like for whatever our taste is and our preoccupations are.
Well, I think it's also too, I mean, it's a big thing to be like, we're doing Canadian international pictures. Like we're taking the country as our acquisitions mandate in some sense. We're putting obviously bookends around the years that we're primarily interested in. But then when you get into that, it gets really interesting because it's also like everything does not need to be like an art house masterpiece. Like there's room for something like the Amityville Hearse, which is like eminently worthy of doing and super fun. But that's a very different thing than like Don't Let the Angels Fall, and there's room for both of those things in the slate. And that's really exciting. But it's also, that then when you don't, when you don't have that filter necessarily, it does mean you're looking at like, potentially like thousands of movies, which can be either really overwhelming or super exciting. It means we have many, many years as a company and we can have something coming out every month.
You got some room there. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, it's got to be kind of also exciting because you're not you're pigeoning yourself into putting out a specific type of movie, or movie in a specific time, for example, like you just said, the Amityville Curse is nothing remotely close to what Don't Let the Angels Fall is. And Don't Let the Angels Fall is not like the mob. Lately there's just a kind of idea that, if a label, whoever it may be, whether it's CIP, whether it's whomever, if they put out a certain type of movie, that's what people expect them to always to put out a certain type of movie. And so when they don't, there's pushback against
it.
It
makes me think about earlier this year when Indicator put out like the Stanley Long set. And everybody was like, why is Indicator putting out these sex comedy movies from
these British
the UK?
sex comedy movies from like the 70s.
Yeah.
Is it because they put out like film noir sets from like Columbia Pictures. So they're always supposed to put out film noir movies or classic Hollywood movies. And for us, I mean, for Steven, I can't really speak for Steven, but I like to sometimes.
He does.
If the release is good, it doesn't matter, it doesn't really matter.
I'm not looking at these labels thinking, okay, they better fucking.
They better give me what I want.
They better keep giving me this more of the same, or I'm gonna be upset.
Well, that's such a big part.
It's like the point of this is
it's such a big part of the whole. The first of the month, everything getting released and people being kind of surprised and taken aback. Like I think we were trying to build that sort of reaction we got when the Amityville Curse was announced. Like nobody.
It happened and it worked. Yeah.
Well, yeah, people were stumped.
I was super surprised.
Super surprised when you guys put that.
We did have a bit more, like when we started and had a slate for kind of like what we were going to release for the first year. It made a lot more sense how we got from like A to B to C and like the different balls that were kind of being juggled. But a lot of things got delayed, and it just they kind of came out when they came out.
Yeah, I think year two will have a little bit more of like an ebb and flow that sort of like disperses them. But I don't know, it's really fun to all of a sudden be like, all right, now we're doing Amityville and Minefield, and they're very different kinds of movies.
Completely different type of movie. I mean, Minefield isn't even like Amityville Curse.
No, not at all.
Not at all. I mean, that film is interesting because it's playing off of so many things of the time, like this government paranoia, brainwashing, sci-fi. There's a police procedural aspect to it. It's like an 80s mishmash of like all the like genres of the time.
Yeah. And we should properly introduce that Minefield is going to be the new release for November 1st. And so this isn't releasing. It'll be November 1st when you hear this, but this is prior to that. So we're talking about the new.
Yeah, by the time you
CIP
hear this,
release.
You'll already know that this movie is coming.
This has come out now. You're welcome.
It's already November. Haven't you guys?
So
here it is. But Minefield, it'll be the most recent release from CIP, and so yeah, me and Andrew were both able to watch this. The guys let us have a screener so we could watch it, and it's a cool movie, man. It's I love seeing, of course, being able to see Michael Ironside in a more starring role is already a gift as it is.
Yeah.
Because he's just such an actor that's always he's a character actor that always plays kind of side characters a lot of times, but when he gets the front center of something, you're just like, damn it, he just needed to do more. Like he's got such like a range that's he can be crazy, he can be dramatic, he can do the action, which you can see some of the action in this movie. It's really a cool movie, and please tell us about Minefield.
Yeah, what drew you guys to it?
John, do you want to say?
Yeah, well, sure. I'll start. So it's one of those films where it's sort of like the chief virtue of the film is almost its kind of crazy pedigree. Like it's we talk about this a little bit on the back cover, I guess, but was conceived by Tom Barry and George Mahalka. Tom Barry directed Amityville Curse. George Mahalka directed My Bloody Valentine. And then because of scheduling or whatever, it ended up being directed by Jean-Claude Lord, who's like this amazing Quebecois filmmaker who made all these great Quebec films in the 70s, French language films, and then ventured into kind of English language genre cinema a little bit more in the 80s and made some, real standout films like Visiting Hours is a personal favorite, Exploitation classic, and also with Michael Ironside. He made a really bizarre film called Cover Girl, which I would recommend to anyone who hasn't seen.
Oh yeah.
And The Vindicator. There's so many of those films, and just seeing all those people come together with that cast, like Christopher Plummer, Michael Ironside, Lisa Langlois, lots of kind of Canadian character actors. So the same way that there's hundreds of great American character actors, there are some very recognizable Canadian actors who, might be somewhat unfamiliar to people, but if you've ever watched Canadian cinema or Canadian TV, you'll know who they are. And the film also just has a wild kind of production history, which we got to go into a lot of the extra features. So, we talked to Lisa Langlois, and she had kind of a terrible experience on the movie, and it doesn't like pull any punches, and talks about like Michael Ironside, the issues they had. And the other thing is Jean-Claude Lord died earlier this year. So we wanted to do something by him. That seemed like a logical place to start if we're releasing some of his films, which we definitely want to do, just as a kind of a tribute.
Yeah, he's really one of those filmmakers. I hope we do more stuff from him. He brought like a sort of again, speaking very broadly, but sort of like an American journeyman filmmaker. What that means sort of is understood to mean very broadly to very specific like Quebecois cinema, especially when he was making sort of like French language films and then going into the back half of his career as English language. The other really fun thing in the movie is just come from Montreal, and like especially even growing up there, you very seldomly get to see your city on film. Like you see it in kind of like local productions and stuff, but like even in Canada, it's really hard to see. Not hard to see, but it's easier to see American films than Canadian films a lot of times, like the multiplex, whatever, growing up. And this is like a great, like they just shoot all over Montreal in the late 80s. Like it starts at the Olympic Stadium, which is just this incredibly weird, bizarre structure that was built in Montreal for the 76 Olympics there that unless you visited Montreal, you probably don't know what it looks like. And it's just very captivating and amazing to look at on screen. And you sort of, that idea just sort of like dominoes throughout the rest of the film. And he really just shoots the fuck out of Montreal. And that's really exciting to see. And it builds on the MK Ultra experiments that actually were conducted in Montreal, the sort of CIA, LSD mind control experiment. So it's just a crazy story that a lot of people don't know about that's based in fact. And it's sort of the what undergirds the whole narrative of the film.
It's also a Christmas movie.
I was going to say that.
Yeah, it's also a Christmas
I was going to say the end. It is. That is true. I thought about that when the movie was happening. I was like, somebody's going to call this a damn Christmas movie.
It's just funny. Like it starts with cards. Like what is it? 9 days till Christmas? Or
they're doing like a Christmas countdown, which has nothing to do with anything.
Yeah, they don't visit at all again. It's just like then we're done with that.
Because I was
thinking of this. Very true.
I was thinking of that same exact thing you guys just said. It's like at the beginning of the movie, there's a title card that says 9 shopping days till Christmas. But they never bring up. They don't follow up on that idea ever again.
You think it's going to be all about shopping?
I know why they did it. I know why he did it, because the movie's about erasing people's memories. So they think by the end of the movie you're going to forget that happened. So it's like
I don't even think there's another reference to Christmas throughout the movie. Like I don't even see like a tree.
I mean, at the beginning you see a little bit.
He shoots some guys and the car blows up, and then as he's reflecting on all the sad memories in his life, he passes some Christmas trees.
Yeah, there's some Christmas stuff there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's because they shoot like all this stuff in these like seedy sections of Montreal that Montreal is famous for many amazing things. Also famous for having a lot of sex clubs, and like a lot of like part of the middle of the whole movie sort of like dives into that world. So you see all these Christmas decorations, but your eye's a little more drawn to the club sex, and like all this like
it's like because no spoiler for anyone listening, but like there is a part of the movie that takes place in kind of the seedy underground sex club, and it's just like it is sex store, club, theater place, and it's just fascinating. It's like Michael Ironside is just he's like this rough and tumbled cop. It's kind of like he's Dirty Harry, like Canadian Dirty Harry, if you will, and he's dealing with like his bosses don't seem to like him very much. There's a whole subplot about the police maybe striking, maybe not striking. That's kind of part of it. There's a lot of things going on in this movie, but the main gist of it is based off of the true. This is true, people listening. MK Ultra was this CIA program started in the 50s, went through the 60s, and ended in the early 70s, where they were experimenting with drugs and things like that to brainwash people and and torture people and things like that. And that was a real thing.
Yeah, and the last shot of the movie is like it really plays into that kind of fun, like what if kind of thing. Like if this, and it makes me think. And this, I don't know if this is giving it away, but it made me think of a more recent film that kind of did a similar, I guess not. It's a similar twist, but that movie Old Henry with Tim Blake Nelson, where like you got this whole movie where it's like a Western and everything, and then suddenly you find out that he's like Billy the Kid, but he didn't die. You're like, what? Like, huh? You guys, anybody watch Old Henry?
I haven't.
I have not seen it.
Yeah. Sorry, I just ruined the whole damn
You just
movie.
ruined the
for you.
movie. I guess.
Not just for us, all the listeners. too.
Yeah. Well, that's
Well,
that's
maybe
what I do.
You could
It's-
edit this out. You do
I
have the power.
could, but I don't like to edit things unless it's somebody asked me to.
Very true.
So
very
if
true.
everybody's okay out there with me spoiling Old Henry, yeah, I mean, Minefield's one that I think definitely, if you like kind of conspiracy movies, you like espionage type of films, you like Michael Ironside, it's one that I think you'll enjoy. It's I can tell you this, it's not boring. It's not a boring movie.
No.
It keeps you interested the whole time.
Yeah,
definitely.
it does play on that like mystery, like uncovering a few mysteries here and there and whatnot. And there's action sequences, there's chase sequences. I don't know if this was just the intention, but there was a lot of ADR going on in the movie. Like I noticed there was a lot of dubbing over people's lines. I don't know if that was just like they were trying to do that at the time and whatnot. I don't know. I just noticed that.
I don't know, but that does remind me that for French speakers who might want to check it out, we also included the French dub track, which is pretty notorious.
Oh, that is interesting.
But yeah, I mean, to me, the thing with that film is with Minefield is it's not a perfect movie, but like when I first saw Minefield, I had all these questions like, how did this come about? How did all these pieces that sort of awkwardly fit together? How was this conceived? And that was, it made sense for Blu-ray for that reason. We could talk to these people who worked on the film and find out like its strange kind of path to becoming what it became. And I think it is a case where the extra features really do bring the film more clearly into focus.
Yeah, because when you first watch it, it's a lot of different movies at once, which I sort of love, but it is also, it cuts both ways. That is also definitely what keeps it from being a perfect movie. But like John's saying, like there's a reason for all of that, and there's such a fascinating sort of production history.
Yeah, we actually there's a commentary on this disc with Paul Korup and Jason Pachonsky, who also did a commentary for The Amityville Curse. And Paul Korup had done, I think, like a 2-hour lecture on the film where he really dug deep into, the real history depicted in the film. And so there's a lot in the commentary too. Like I would recommend that people who pick it up just watch the commentary, watch the extra features. You'll probably get a lot out of it.
Yeah, well, you've sold me, guys. I mean, I'm definitely picking up Minefield. As I was telling you, I don't know if I told, this might have been off mic, I can't remember, but it does give me a little bit of like the Scanners vibe, not just because Michael Ironside, but the poster, like you said,
the poster
kind of gives the
very
vibes
deceptive.
of Scanners. And I'm a like I've said before, I'm a David Cronenberg fan. I love it, and I'm gonna look at this movie as like a weird prequel to Scanners. It'll play. I love. I like doing that sometimes, where movies that don't even connect at all, I'm just like, you know what, I'm gonna make these connect. This makes this even cooler.
Yeah.
It's your brain. They
it's
can't.
my head canon for film. I'm gonna head canon.
They can't change your mind.
They can't. No, it's my collection. I'm gonna put it right. I'm gonna put Minefield right next to Scanners on my shelf.
Oh, that original one sheet.
But,
I love the original art that we have for our set too. I think it's just as good as the original art. The original art is definitely worth it. Worth its weight in gold.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Nice.
Very cool slip. Yeah, I think like the thing with Scanners is for like I'm same as you. I'm a huge Scanners fan, and it's like as a Canadian cinephile, you're just always thinking about David Cronenberg because he's obviously like the kind of one of the giants. But that has become more and more like maybe even my favorite Cronenberg film or one of my favorites.
Dude, when I just kind of discovered that through Criterion, that and I was already aware of David Cronenberg, but when I first watched that Scanners release from Criterion and got into the features and everything, and it's one of the, just like Minefield a little bit. It's like you start like when the movie's over, you're like, I want to know more. Like I want to know more about this world, and of course there was sequels that were like directed to video and things like that, but I wanted more Cronenberg version of Scanners. Like I wanted to know more about where these characters were going to go, but that's the greatness of it. It's like it gives you only so much, and it's like such a fascinating. It's almost like the most like independent version of an X-Men movie you could have ever made. It's just such a cool movie. I love that movie. And like you said, maybe probably my favorite Cronenberg film. Maybe, I don't know. It's tough because I'm a big fan of Existence as well. I think that's pretty high up there.
Underrated.
It's underrated, but Scanners.
I normally have like a low tolerance for movies that are just like overloaded with exposition, like explaining their rules and their world and everything. But somehow there's something about Scanners. I just find the world of that movie fascinating. Like it's such a strange series of like conceits that he came up with.
And I get a little upset that everybody focuses on just the head explosion.
Yeah, there's a lot of other
guys.
movies.
That GIF lives on forever now on the internet.
I get it; it's cool, but like, there's like
I love
so much more of this movie.
What I love the most about that is the making of that scene, and just how they did it all practical. And we did a whole episode on David Cronenberg because we went through all of his releases, Blu-ray releases and whatnot, and we went back to his early stuff, like his early like short films.
It was like 3 hours long, guys. So I'm not asking you to go to listen. It's too long.
Into two things, but it was just going back to his really early stuff that was so low budget because the Canadian government was giving him money to make educational films, and I think he just went and made whatever the hell he wanted. I think that's kind of what he just did.
It's all educational.
Because he was just making like weird like sci-fi films with like two people just in like an abandoned building, and it's just incredible.
Got to start somewhere.
Gotta start somewhere. Things like The Brood and all that stuff. I mean, we could go on forever about Cronenberg.
Let's not get too
there
far
are
away from
other Canadian people, other Canadian filmmakers.
There are, but CIP. So yes, guys, we love what you're doing there. Please keep doing what you're doing. Keep surprising us with more interesting Canadian films because what I'm discovering, I got some of the stuff I got right here. Of course, the Buster Keaton Rides Again. I love it. It's great stuff, and I'm a big fan of Don't Let the Angels Fall. It is a really great film.
Yeah, I didn't get to talk about that. That's probably one of the better. That's a damn good movie.
And then Kid Brother. Was another one I just really enjoyed. Very heartfelt film. It's great. You guys you're doing a great job.
I kind of wanted to talk about. I mean, there's so much I want to talk about more. Like Nobody Waved Goodbye felt like the inverse of 400 Blows. It just felt like no, don't be independent. Don't escape your parents.
I will say this about
opposite.
that. I say this when we talked about it initially. I just said like that. This is a pretty good movie, but that kid's annoying. That kid is super annoying.
No, when we cut that trailer,
that
trailer, we really wanted to highlight that aspect of it. Like, okay, the guy's annoying, but let's like talk about the other aspects of the movie.
That kid,
that movie's a drinking game, close to a drinking game. Like that's
he made all the wrong decisions that you're supposed to do. Made all the wrong decisions, but I think that was the kind of the purpose of the movie is that when you are that age, you're a teenager, you're going to make all the wrong decisions. Like that's what's gonna happen.
It's an authentic portrait of like an annoying young person because a lot of it was improvised. So he kind of got in there and sort of said what he would say in a lot of those situations, and so it kind of rings true as somebody who thinks he knows more than he really does.
Yeah, and it shows the naivete of youth, and also shows the fact. I mean, that movie came out, decades upon decades ago. 1964, and it shows like that naivete, and that sense of wanting to be more mature than your age dictates is something that happens generationally. That probably happened when we were young. What happened to our parents' generation, so on and so forth. So that movie has that staying power.
Must have had an influence on the Judd Apatow films, except for they were all older people that didn't grow up. And then he did a lot of improvisational work with all the actors in them movies, where they just run on and be annoying in his movies. I like Judd Apatow. I love a lot of Judd.
Yeah, and I really, I mean, not to be too quick, but I know these guys got to get out of here sooner rather than later. But Don't Let the Angels Fall, I thought was just fantastic. I mean, I love movies that are, they work on both a micro and macro level. This dissolution of this quintessential family. Showing that the Leave It to Beaver era of like two parents and children and white picket fence suburbia is not the picture perfect experience and aesthetic that we all believe it to be. I love the breaking down of like false aesthetics and facades and things like that, and that's why I think that film is just fantastic as well. Also, the title. Whoever thought of that title originally was a genius.
That's why they picked it out of that pile. They were just like,
oh, they
okay,
just saw
this
the
one,
title?
this one right here. No.
Yeah, no, Timothy
I mean,
Billy
it
is one of
worked.
our great Canadian sort of like novelists and playwrights, and George Cassander, the director, even though like the rest of his career, he sort of eventually ended up going in sort of like a different, maybe more kind of like quintessentially commercial direction. But like Don't Let the Angels Fall, and especially like the medium length short films that we include on the set as well. During that period, he was sort of like Canada's kind of, or one of Canada's like great modernist filmmakers, Hungarian emigre, like really, really interesting ideas that he was bringing, and different ideas sort of in each one. Like if you watch all the special features and then the feature itself, like you really see him like kind of like developing a lot of different ideas, but like all very sort of successfully.
Yeah, the shorts aren't necessarily like these micro budget student films or something. They're pretty much made the same way Don't Let the Angels Fall was made through the National Film Board. And there's some great actors like Michael Sarrazin stars in one of them, one of the real standouts. And yeah, that's the one thing I would emphasize to people who haven't checked out these discs is a lot of the discs, the films that are included as extras are, as good as the features. Like we were just talking about Nobody Waved Goodbye, and there's a film called Christopher's Movie Matinee, which is a featured documentary about a bunch of like Toronto hippies in the late 60s, like teenagers. And that's definitely worth seeing, and all the shorts on that set as well.
Yeah, as I said before, keep doing what you guys are doing. You guys are killing it.
Clearly, a lot of passion and a lot of work goes into each of these releases to kind of maximize, their quality,
with
their
all
potential.
All that archive you guys have to dig into, it is you guys. That's where you're probably really getting a great benefit is the supplements are like, you can really stack on supplements because there is a lot there to mine.
Yeah, and I think as just, consumers and collectors
we appreciate that.
Yeah, look at releases, you appreciate the wealth of stuff that's on there because oftentimes, and I mean, I've said this, as the degradation of the mainstream physical media world is going down, the lesser boutique world is going up in terms of quality of stuff, oftentimes when you get a mainstream release of whatever new movie's coming out, you don't get much in terms of actual supplement material. You get the movie and maybe a little bit of behind the scenes making of that's less than 10 minutes long. I mean, the world of the commentary is kind of going bye for a lot of those movies. So these are very, very much appreciated.
Well, that's the cool thing about doing what we're doing. Like especially we noticed over the pandemic, it was just like all of a sudden physical media sales like tripled. This is more for Arbalos, but I think we're just seeing kind of like the fruits of it with CIP too, where all of a sudden it was like used to be streaming was here and physical media was here, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, they're the same thing, and now physical media may be a little bit higher. And like when that happens, all of a sudden, and also just like the intelligence and the literacy and the hunger of like you guys and your audience means that like these films need to be restored properly because people know what a good restoration looks like, and people really care about the quality of extra features, and will watch them and talk about them, and that's the reason that we have the luxury of investing time and resources in making. So it's, I don't know, really sort of a golden age for like boutique home entertainment. I don't have to tell you guys, but it's it makes it really fun to do what we do, because if that didn't exist, like producing Blu-rays in my experience, even like 6 years ago, it was a lot harder to invest in doing the sort of stuff that we're doing. Whereas now, like you can sort of like economically justify that, which is great because it's what we want to be doing.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm glad that the market has changed to where it's starting to show that there is a lot of us out there that still want to have the physical disc, because it's been some dark times before the last years. There was all them articles coming out, is physical media dying?
Yeah,
of course, we're all like, no, nuh-uh. But
I mean,
realities are realities.
There's a whole discussion thread. I don't know if we want to go.
Yeah,
don't have time to go down. Just we're seeing that streaming. There's a thing about streaming that it's not permanent. It's it's ever fluctuating and ever changing, the landscape of streaming. And I think a lot of people are starting to notice that, specifically when it comes to availability of a lot of movies, where you can get them, where you can watch them, all that kind of stuff. You notice that there's no permanent, steadfast hold for any of that. You're also seeing that, maybe streaming could implode eventually or whatnot. I don't know.
When everybody's doing it, like everybody's taking up all the space and there's just too much content coming out. It's like we can't all watch it all anyway.
Not only that, but just like the idea that even if you buy something digitally, this is one thing that bothers me the most. Even if you buy something digitally, you don't really own it. It can still be taken away from you, or you can still lose it. I find that to be really disturbing, as opposed to like holding a disc in my hand or whatever in my hand. Like the only way I can lose is, obviously it gets stolen or, destroyed.
Yeah, I was going to say if a storm knocks, destroys my house. Sure. Yeah.
But
I've lost out there. I've lost everything.
Like some company can't take it away from me, technically.
Yeah. Shout out to Fun City Editions, John Hertzberg.
Yeah, I know. I've got stuff all around me.
He's doing really cool stuff.
I got representation.
I got representations.
Please wave the Fun City.
We got everybody's stuff all around the room.
Yeah, I've got stuff from everybody all around me.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I also have right next to me. Actually, I was going to bring it up.
One up me, please.
Since you got Arbalos, I got my
Santango. Thanks, man. Yeah.
Santango, nice.
I still have to watch it though because it is like a day.
Like
you have to
watch
7.5
7 hours.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
I just wrote a piece about like restoring that, and it was sort of like it was basically the equivalent of restoring. If you historically average a feature film to be like 90 minutes, I know Marvel things are like 9 hours. But like say that it was kind of like restoring 5 films simultaneously. That thing was a beast. But very proud of it. Thank you for. Thank you for
of course, and I do want to bring up real quick the new announcement you recently had with the Nina Minkus stuff.
Yeah, we have all of her narrative film. She has a new documentary out that is with Kino. But aside from that, like all of her narrative filmmaking, we're putting out. It's a 6-film box set that's coming out. Pre-sales are up now.
We talked about it last
week, and it'll come out early next year. But we're doing a limited edition slip with some collector stuff that comes with that. You can get that from our Arbalos site. Yeah, very, very proud to be working with her. She's a force of nature, Nina.
Yeah. So before we move on to, I don't know, are you guys going to hang around for some Blu-ray announcements, or you think you just want to cut out?
Your call, John. I'm easy.
Yeah, we can stick around.
Okay, let's see if you don't have anything to say about something, don't worry about it.
Yeah,
we don't see everything either, so it's all good.
Very true. But if you guys got to go at any point, just
let us know and you just pop out. Just before we move on to that, I do want to say I noticed both of you guys have baseball hats on, and I'm a big baseball fan. Okay, so, are you actually fans of the Blue Jays and the Expos? Well, Expos ain't the team anymore, but you're actually fans of. Are you just one of the? Because in America, I see a lot of people wear baseball hats, and I'm an Orioles fan. I'm from Baltimore, so I see somebody with an Orioles hat, and I'm like. Is he really a fan, or is he just like the colors?
Or does he just like brown and black?
No, it's black and orange. Okay?
Oh, sorry, black and orange.
Yeah, don't mess it up. So, are you actually fans?
Right now at this moment, I'm not a fan.
Because of what happened?
No, I'm just not. I don't even know what happened. To be honest, I'm that much of not a fan right now because
I was going to say because you were in the playoffs and you lost.
Yeah. But over the course of my life, I've been a fan for periods of time. I step in and out of it. But it's also there's also a weird way that we David's from Montreal, so he's in Montreal quite a bit, and sometimes we're on meetings, and this is how people can kind of tell where we both are. I'm wearing the Toronto hat. He's wearing the Montreal hat.
I'd say we didn't plan this. It just happens organically sometimes.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So, David, you haven't been a fan in a while, obviously, because your team hasn't existed.
No, I did grow up going to Expos games, though. So, like, I got this.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Speaking of the Big O from Minefield, and now I've been in LA for a little over a decade. So I'm a Dodgers fan. Although that was a rough. That was rough this year. But I live in Silver Lake, kind of on the border of Echo Park. If that means anything to people who are in LA a bunch. So I can walk to Dodger Stadium. So my partner and I. She's like a big LA native, Dodgers fan for a long time, so we go to a lot of games. But yeah, that's my allegiance is an Expos hat at Dodger Stadium, if that makes sense.
Oh, man.
Silent protest.
Well, their team had one of the great players, Vladimir
Yes.
Guerrero. I love Guerrero. He's amazing. I will always be an Orioles fan, no matter how bad they are. This year we revived ourselves. We had a winning season after having 4 losing over 100 4 seasons in a row of 100 losses or more. So
no one was keeping track, I guess, other than you.
me.
I've actually have a
so-
question for you if you're from Baltimore, and I guess it relates
Okay.
it relates to the larger thing. Do you think we're ever going to get a complete Homicide: Life on the Street Blu-ray collection? Because it's my favorite show of all time.
Oh.
Wow.
I was putting that out in the
I don't-
ether. If it does anything karmically,
You know,
make it
to be
happen.
honest with you, man, I'm not aware of it. I'm from Baltimore.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of my early life there, but not I haven't been there I'm in North Carolina now.
Okay.
So, but I'm not aware of that. What's that? Is that so? That's a show.
That was a show that was like I think it was a police procedural show in the 90s set in Baltimore. Andre Brower, I believe, was in
Andre
it.
Brower. It was like Barry Levinson put his like thing behind it, and Tom Fontana developed it. But yeah, it's where Andre Brower popped out of. Ned Beatty was in it for a long time. Fed Coda. It had like a really great cast. It actually came out before NYPD Blue, but then NYPD Blue came out like half a season later and like kind of stole all the thunder as being this is the cop show that is very shows you what it's really
In the
like.
90s, had so many of them. I know
know-
Homicide: Life on the Streets. I believe there were DVD releases.
Yes, there were. Yeah, they're
For
sitting
it.
they're sitting next to me.
Sitting next to you.
looking at it.
One day, yeah, they're
I
like
mean, my
long out
fir-
of print, but like I
Yeah, my first passion when it came to collecting the physical media was TV shows, because it felt like the late 2000s. They were just, they were starting to come out with a lot of them. Unfortunately, now a lot of that stuff has just slowed down in terms of releasing TV shows on Blu-ray specifically, or even on DVD at all. They don't promo them anymore. They don't even promote them hardly anymore. They just kind of like spit them out, and people find them and buy them. And if they don't, they don't. It's streaming has taken over TV more than anything.
Yeah.
I mean, I would love to. There's still so many older
Don't
shows.
do it. Don't do it.
Oh,
Don't go
what?
down the rabbit hole.
I was just saying, there's so many older
Stop.
shows that need to be put out on
oh,
Blu-ray.
Yeah,
I totally
uh-huh.
agree.
Same
I'm
there.
right with you.
Fun
Yeah.
fact about
I'll go on
fun
then.
fact about Homicide: Life on the Streets. Not a lot of people know. Lars von Trier once claimed that the Dogma movement was inspired by Barry Levinson, the Barry Levinson directed pilot for Homicide.
Ooh.
And I interviewed Barry
don't
Levinson
doubt
once
it.
and told him that, and he didn't know that. He was kind of like taken aback.
Huh. Well,
Amazing, kind of a mainstream network TV show inspired,
along,
Dogma 95.
Well, it's crazy about that is that
The
pilot
complete opposite
premiered
of.
like after the Super Bowl. Like NBC was like really pushing that. So the idea that is what inspired Lars von Trier too, like that was the premiere of it. Sorry to cut you off.
he was watching this. I could just see Lance von Trier watching the Super Bowl.
Was he
getting ready
watching
to
the
watch
Super Bowl?
Or he was waiting up all night angry, waiting for the Super Bowl to end. How long is this game gonna fucking be? But the only thing with Baltimore I always hear about is The Wire. Of course, everybody talks about The Wire.
Sure.
And Baltimore, and that's the only show I
that did get a
associate.
Blu-ray release. I mean,
Yeah.
HBO was actually doing a pretty good job of releasing their older stuff on Blu-ray, Sopranos and whatnot.
Yeah,
I mean, I can go on forever about
Yes, you
TV
can.
shows on Blu-ray.
yeah. He does.
But it's not this podcast. It's
That's
this
not what we
podcast.
do
I've done
here.
this many times.
Yeah, he does. I just have to stop him. Next thing you know, he'll start talking about I Love Lucy not getting
Oh,
a proper
you read
release,
my mind.
or
Why we only got 2
every
seasons of
classic
crime.
TV show he'll start talking about. But let's get into Blu-ray announcements. We had a good amount of them this week, and we will try to move through them as quickly as we can. Andrew, where would you like to start?
Let's start with. I would like to start with Radiance Films.
Okay.
Because he, Fran, who we had on the show a couple of weeks ago, who runs the shop over there, he announced the March titles that both for March, as well as a new box set.
Well,
Or first box set.
he re-announced the March. He
Yes.
announced that the dates on the
these
two March
titles we knew of. We didn't know they were
Yeah,
coming out in March.
Yeah,
He gave dates
but the
to
box set is new. Yeah,
Yeah, but the box set is new.
yeah.
And yeah, the titles that are coming out March 6th and 7th, depending on where you live in the world, is Filler Up with Super, and what's the other one, Steven? It's the
Man on the Roof.
The Man on the Roof. Yeah.
Yep.
And you can pre-order those directly from Radiance Films website
Also the MVD.
or MVD
Yeah.
shop. Yeah, is that what it's called? But the one that's got people I think most talking about is their first box set, because Steven is a box set fiend, as well as
No, I'm
many of
not.
our
No, I'm
many
not.
of our listeners.
Come on now.
I see a lot of them on your shelf back there.
Okay, all right.
You have the evidence. But this is a box set of 3 Italian films. And yeah, it's Franco Nero in 3 Mafia Tales by Damiano Damiani. It's The Day of the Owl, The Case is Closed, Forget It, and How to Kill a Judge. And this is limited to 3,000 copies, and it's available for pre-order. I'm just excited just for more genre Italian films to be out there in good quality for us to buy and watch and collect.
Yeah, and this is now I could have watched if I'd had more time. I'd have been able to watch all 3 of these films, but I've watched 2 of these movies.
Really?
Yes, these were really. I really enjoyed both of the 2 I watched. I'm not going to try to say the Italian names, but I did watch the Day of the Owl, and I did watch How to Kill a Judge, and How to Kill a Judge is one, and you can watch it on Tubi, by the way, one of the great streaming services, Tubi, who has literally almost anything you can think of just randomly. But How to Kill a Judge is a cool movie that like plays into like the ideas of like roles as filmmakers and like, what we should, where the responsibility lays when you're talking about certain subjects. Like if you're talking about something that's in this case, like somebody kind of outrightly accusing somebody of being corrupt in the kind of political landscape, and then something happens to that person after the movie comes out, you're like, did I have something to do with that person dying, like because of my thoughts on this person? Like it's a fascinating kind of discussion about, and Franco Nero plays the director who's the one that made the movie, and so he's dealing with the blowback of the what's going on here and trying to figure out who's involved. And like this box set says, they're all mafia films, so there's mafia oriented things going on, and so that movie was really cool. But even more so, the other film, The Day of the Owl, was also really good, and it's also not only Franco Nero who plays the police chief, but then you have Lee J. Cobb, who is the mafia boss. So it's them two, going at each other, and they're 2 men who like really respect each other. So it's not like this like big, like it's not an actioneer type of movie. It's a very cat and mousey type of movie. Where there's a murder at the very beginning, which the beginning's great. It kind of like just gets you right into it. And there's a guy that's just like stumbles onto the road and he just dies on the side of the road. And then their story starts. And so now he's trying to figure out who killed this guy. And then it's great. I don't want to over explain it, but it's really good.
You had me at Lee J. Cobb,
Yeah, Lee J. He doesn't yell a lot in this movie.
Oh, damn it. That's my favorite part.
He's actually a little bit more subdued in here, and it's weird seeing him in an Italian film. At least for me, I wasn't aware he was doing like Italian films, so I'm out of the loop on that. But guys, you aware of any of this?
Well, the Damiano Damiani set has a direct link to CIP. I don't know if you guys know what it is.
Oh man!
Oh no!
No.
So he directed Amityville 2, of course, the greatest of all Amityville films, and that one was written by Hans Holzer, who also he wrote one other, or the source material was written by him. I can't remember if he wrote the script, but he also wrote the book that was the basis for the Amityville Curse. So there's that. I mean,
awesome.
I saw How to Kill a Judge when it came on a DVD. I think that was like a Blue Underground DVD long ago. Okay. But I think I reviewed it when it came out. But that's definitely the one that I think I'm most into. I remember hearing about the other ones. I think that's the only one that's a new announcement. You said, yeah.
That's the only new announcement from them and they also got tote bags, by the way. New tote bags were added to the website.
I just saw those. Yeah, they're super handsome. Yeah, it's really exciting what Frank's doing.
Yeah, he's they also released a trailer, an exclusive trailer that I think was on Blu-ray.com. So you guys can get a nice little overlook of kind of like the vibe he's going for, but it looks like he's got like what you guys are doing. He's just going for deep cuts. Like he wants to really, surprise you with things that you've probably never heard of, which so far he is. We talked with you guys. Go back and listen to the episode. We talk all about all the stuff he's announced already, except for this box set and deep cuts all around. And the other thing that they also announced is that another Fun City Editions is going to be making its way to the UK through them too, which is going to be Walking the Edge. Yeah. So
Great film.
And that's great. That's one of Fun City's best editions, I think.
Yeah, I love that one.
Yeah, that was a movie I knew nothing about until I bought it and put it in my player, and I'm like, Robert Forster's in this? I was not expecting that at all.
Also, Nancy Kwan is such an odd match for that kind of film because she made so many kind of prestige, like classy films over the year.
Yeah.
Some excellent Spinell in that.
It was a pleasant surprise.
Yep.
I saw that when it played at John Hertzberg came out as a friend and was presenting it at the New Bev, and that was just sort of like a total bullseye. I know it's like a favorite of Tarantino's. They've showed at that theater a lot over the years. Might have even been his print, but that was just sort of like the stars aligning kind of screening. Sold out, and everybody was really excited. It was sort of right after the pandemic was sort of dying down, so a lot of people were. Yeah, it was the first thing I saw in a theater post pandemic, and it was just a very cool kind of quintessential LA experience.
Yeah, when I finally got back out to theaters, that was. God, I loved it. I took pictures of everything. I was like, yeah, I'm back here. Look where I'm at, guys. Like, I'm back at the theater. God, it was... And now I can't go anymore because I have a baby. So.
Yeah. Oh, you had it for a brief moment.
I had a little bit of a moment there, and then I'm back to not going to the movies anymore.
You'll get there eventually.
Yeah, eventually. I'm not going to be one of them parents that brings their baby into the theater.
Please
I've told myself that my whole life. I'm like, I'm not going to be that guy that brings their newborn in. I'm not.
And I get it. Can't find a babysitter, but they shouldn't be bringing them to this R-rated slasher.
I got it. I got 3,000 movies behind me. I don't need to go to the theater really, so I don't have an excuse.
But let's move on to the next smaller slate. I guess go to Eureka.
Okay.
Because Eureka had their January slate of only 2 films, so it's Run Man Run, which is a spaghetti western directed by Sergio Solimo. And then he also, movie we just talked about, Royal Warriors. And they're also putting out all of the films we just talked about that 88's putting out in the Line of Duty box set. They will also be putting these out, but for Region B land. It's going to be like Royal Warriors and
Yes,
all
Ma'am.
of the other ones we talked about. Yes, Ma'am, which I think they already announced they were coming out with anyways.
Yeah.
And they're going to be putting out in the Line of Duty 3 and 4. So they're just not putting it in a box set. But Run Man Run is directed by, like I said, by Sergio Solimas. And Sergio Solima is actually a director who we just talked about because he did what was The Big Gun Down with Lee Van Cleef. And this movie's kind of like
indicator release.
Yeah, and this movie's quite like a quasi sequel to that because it has the same actors in it playing the same character.
That's familiar.
And that's kind of the loose connection there. I don't think it's a direct sequel or anything like that, but it is kind of connected in that way. And it's Thomas Milian, he's playing Cuchillo, who was in the Big Gun Down with Lee Van Cleef. And once again, he's kind of on the run from people, and it's kind of that kind of spaghetti western adventure story. It's also, coincidentally, Steve, you mentioned Tubi. It's also available to stream on there right now if you want to.
It's the only thing they're good for is to help us with doing
It's kind of like these random movies that you just wouldn't
Streaming's only good to help us with research. That's it.
I guess. I mean, that's what...
No, it's good. It's good, but buy discs. Do it.
Right. Apparently this is his most, like, political film because it's also dealing with, like, a Mexican political revolution and stuff like that. But yeah, Sergio Solima also directed Revolver, starring Oliver Reed, which we had to talk about a while ago. It was part of that era or time that I was noticing where people from everywhere, all these companies were putting out random Oliver Reed starring films. And I was just like, this is... I don't know if it's just an Oliver Reed kick right now.
Now it's Charles Bronson. We get
Charles Bronson and Oliver
release
Reed
every 5
going
minutes
back and
now.
forth.
Yeah.
Coincidentally... Sergio Solima directed Violent City, starring Charles Bronson.
Yeah.
There you go. But yeah, so those are the 2 from Eureka.
All right.
That's another one. Run Man Run is another one with like ancient Blue Underground history because they come up with a great spaghetti western box set like in 2002 2 or something, and that I remember that being in that set. But again, I don't remember it that well because it was 20 years ago.
Now they seem to mostly put out 4Ks of horror of Jess Franco movies and just horror stuff. It just seems like they've put themselves in a corner there. I don't.
Oh, it works. It works for them because
they did put out the Final Countdown though.
That's true.
Yeah, they did that one,
which we do kind of reference every single.
Yeah,
episode.
well, you do. I don't.
Oh, okay. Didn't have to bring that up, but all right. Ironically, I've never seen the movie, so I'm mostly referencing the song.
Yeah, really. Yeah, that's about
That's me. But I guess we'll stay in the same geographical area because 88 Films, in their infinite wisdom, decided to throw a curveball at us and announce their January, February, and March.
Yeah, I was gonna say their whole quarter 1 slate.
Yeah, just randomly, just on a Friday afternoon, just hanging out. Here you go, everybody. Here's what's coming up in the new year. And as usual, it's a wide, diverse slate. So 2 films for January are Hell of the Living Dead from 1980, which is a 4K UHD release, as well as a Blu-ray combo. And then House on the Edge of the Park, which is also a 4K UHD Blu-ray combo release as well. February, they're releasing a box set, Pete Walker Heritage Collection Deluxe Collector's Edition, which contains The Big Switch, For Men Only, Man of Violence, Home Before Midnight, School for Sex, Cool It Carol! Exclamation point.
Cool.
I think
obviously these are sex films. That's what they are.
No,
I believe so.
Oh, you believe so?
I believe so. I'm not even guessing. I'm pretty sure I looked at it earlier.
So abruptly, I didn't get a chance to dive into these. So please excuse my ignorance on all this stuff. But there's going to be more in March. It's a group of Italian films: Ark of the Sun God from 1984, 4K of that. Tentacles, 1977. The Whip and the Body from 1963. These titles sell themselves, really.
Well, some of these, I've seen a couple of these, but let's start with David and John. Any of these stand out to you?
Well, Hell of the Living Dead is a pretty memorable, crazy Italian zombie film scored by Goblin. Nice. I haven't seen that for a long time, but I've watched so many Bruno Mattei films in the last few years because Severin keeps releasing them that I kind of itching to get back to that one.
Yeah, it's a fun one. Yeah, they got some really fun effects in that film. And yeah, I mean, a lot of the zombie films of that time, it's just fun to just at least check them out. Yeah, that one. And another one I checked out was the Whip in the Body, which is a Mario Bava film. Really good. It's a really good kind of whodunit kind of film where there's this family who has like a long lost, son who comes back, who's kind of like played by Christopher Lee, who's apparently like just a terrible person, and one woman that he comes back to who they apparently had a love affair with, he literally beats her. Before they have sex, it's like a sexual arousal thing where he'll beat her with a whip and then they'll make love. And so it's like the movie's about how like his like impression on all these different people in the family, and like he dies and then it's about who killed him. And that's the whole movie, and it's a really cool movie. It's got some surreal stuff in there. It's really it's Bava. It's really stylish. And some really great characters in there. Anybody else seen it?
I think, John, did we watch the trailer for that at some point during a pandemic movie night?
Yeah.
Like as you were describing the plot, I'm like, I 100%, I feel like I've not seen it, but I've seen a trailer that gave away all of the most memorable scenes of the movie.
I feel like I've seen every Mario Bava film around Whip in the Body, but somehow I've never gotten around to seeing Whip in the Body.
Yeah, I'll high recommend on it. It's a real good watch. Like it's a crisp hour 20 minutes, just all set in one location, and just really well shot and real well acted, and just kind of talks about it's not just a horror movie, but it's also kind of like dealing with like trauma in different ways, different people that he's interacted with through their life. He's affected them negatively in different ways, so they're all dealing with it, and then of course the end where you reveals I ain't gonna mess up the surprise. I'm not gonna mess
Yeah,
up
don't
old. I
spoil it.
already messed up old Henry. I won't mess up this one.
Yeah, come on, save it for
Yeah,
people.
I'll save
you
it. I'll
had
save
me-
it for
yeah.
the people.
Yeah, you had me at Christopher Lee just because I feel like yet again
yeah.
another actor who's had so much of his stuff come out recently through those Severin box sets.
Severin.
Yeah, it just more Christopher Lee the better, in my opinion. But that's not the end of 88 films. They do have a couple more things. One in March, another one in March is called God of Gamblers, starring Chow Yun-fat from 1989. And then I think there's one more. Yeah, there's a Stallone film,
Yeah.
Detox from 2002.
Or the way I heard it, which was I See You.
Oh, is that
It's just
is
the
that
name in America that it was initially called. Yeah.
Both of those titles aren't great.
Sylvester Stallone or
I
Frank
don't think
Stallone?
so.
I think it's important to.
Who knows? Who knows?
It's Sylvester.
It's Sylvester, I think. But
Frank did this one.
But it's I remember seeing this movie when it first came out.
Really?
Yeah.
In the theater?
I don't know if I saw it in the theater, but I remember I guess maybe when it came out on VHS. I definitely watched this on VHS. And I don't remember it being great, but it's one of them things where I feel like if I revisit it, maybe I'll like it more. Maybe.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm a
there's
Stallone fan. I'm a Stallone
you are
fan.
a
I
big
like Stallone.
fan. I haven't seen a lot of his stuff, like a lot of his action films from like the 90s and 2000s. I just didn't watch a lot of them.
Are you talking about? You've seen Demolition Man, right?
Yeah, I've seen Demolition
Okay,
Man.
you better. See, yeah,
I've seen
about to stop this podcast right
Cliffhanger.
now and watch Demolition Man.
You see
I've
Driven?
seen Cliffhanger.
The Specialist.
Oh, Driven, man. That's
I think I've seen this. But
I don't know about that one.
I think I saw his
Streets of Toronto.
his version of Get Carter.
Yeah,
think I've
Get
seen
Carter.
that.
Yeah,
But something like this.
he's
I
got
have not-
like Assassins. Remember Assassins? You ever see Assassins?
Is that that's the one with
With Antonio Banderas.
Antonio Banderas?
yeah,
The one
yep.
with the GIF that everyone uses for everything.
Written by the Wachowskis.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, it was. Yes, it
Yep.
was. But yeah, this
Welcome
is
to the
coming up.
Stallone podcast.
Yeah, welcome to
Can we do
Stallone
that?
Podcast.
We got a couple,
We celebrate
we got a couple
Stallone.
hours
You
on
know
that.
what I was thinking? We did when we were doing Cinema Discovery Project, which was our previous podcast to this one. We did like a 4.5 hour episode on the Rocky franchise, all the way up through
Did we do
Creed
that?
2.
That
was one of our early episodes.
I don't think it was that long.
I think
Was it that
pretty
long? I don't
Yeah.
think so. I might have died
Go back
after
and
that
take a
one.
look.
man.
It was
I might
like
have
4
decided
hours long.
podcasting wasn't worth it anymore after that one.
I mean,
But,
we went through each movie, including Rocky 5.
I know we did an
briefly.
episode. I know we did an episode about Stallone where we talked about movies that were
We
not
did
the
do his-
Rocky franchise.
We also did his non-Rocky movies.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where I got to watch the movie he did, Fist, F-I-S-T, which was about
Yeah.
it was about unionizing
Like a labor-
truckers.
Like,
Jimmy
labor
Hoffa.
unionizing truckers.
It's like it's a fictionalized biopic of Jimmy Hoffa,
yes, it was.
directed by Norman
And
Pearson.
it was.
That's right.
I remember people talking about it because it was like he had done it like I think after Rocky, late 70s, and it was like it was like one of those movies where it's like his career could have gone in more of this dramatic, like serious turn. Instead, he pivoted towards doing more Rocky movies.
He did the
Rambo,
Saturday
et
Night
cetera.
Fever sequel.
Staying alive.
Yes,
Yeah, he did Staying Alive. He directed that.
didn't he?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man, no one ever talks about that.
We did.
Yeah, I guess
We just
do.
did.
We just did.
And now that's the tease for the next podcast. We're
Yeah.
talking just Staying Alive for a whole 2 hours.
Just the Stallone, just the Stallone directed stuff. His
Yeah.
directorial.
It's very
thing,
small.
including
It's mostly
Expendables.
Rocky movies and
It's mostly Rocky
Rambo.
movies and Expendables. The first one.
Yeah.
I don't think I
But,
realized he directed the
that's-
first Expendables movie. It makes sense.
Yeah.
adds up.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
Yep.
directed, and then the rest of them were just other.
I know
people he
Simon
picked up.
West did the second one.
Yes, he did.
Yeah. Which is a good choice, He did Con Air, which is amazing. So it's not a bad choice. I still would like to see Nicolas Cage in the Expendables movies, but they're probably only going to do one more of them. So
I mean, Expendables 4 is supposed to come out next year, so
yeah,
they're
you
in
can
post
always
on that,
dream.
apparently.
We can dream.
One can.
I would like. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of people I would like to pair Nicolas Cage with. That might not ever happen. The other one's Quentin Tarantino, but we'll
Did
see.
you? I mean, I don't mean to go off on a whole Nicolas Cage thing, but did you see because of the success of Pig, he's upped his like salary requirement from like $1 million to $4 million? I don't know if that was true or anything.
I don't know.
But if that's true, he's worth it. He's worth it, I guess. He's worth
I mean, He's paid off all his debts. He's packed. Now he needs to make some. Now he's got to get ahead. So
very true, very true. Willy's Wonderland.
As long as he does a National Treasures 3, I'm good. You know, like I know they're doing the show.
There's a rumor recently that he may come back for National Treasure 2, 3.
Cancel that damn
3.
show. Cancel that show. Let's move on to the movie.
And there was another thing that he was going to come back for, but I can't remember what it was.
Well, let's talk about slates. We're going to keep these guys here all night.
Go from here, Steven? You get me off track.
Arrow.
You want to go to Arrow already? Gotcha.
You asked me.
Yeah.
Don't be mad when I say Arrow.
There we go. We are in Arrow. We're staying in that same geographical area of the world. Arrow has a really solid January slate. I think this is one of their strongest slates we've gotten from them in a little bit. I dig it. Steven, you want to go through these?
No, I don't. I asked you to do it. No, I'm just kidding.
Then.
So we got a set here, which is, I think, the highlight here. Lukas Moodysson, if that's how you say his last name. We got a set here of his films, which I think includes 7 films of his, which I think might be all of his feature-length films, if I'm not mistaken. But you go through these.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So the first film has 2 titles. One is called, Fucking 'Em All, which is, I believe, the name of the place that these people live in. So it's kind of like Screw the Place They Live In. Or it's called Show Me Love, depending on where you look for that.
That's where I saw it. I saw it.
Yeah, that's what I saw it as, Show Me Love. So there's that film. Hold on, I got to get a much, much better list.
Well, that's my problem. Is I'm trying to get I was stuck on I had all, like I said before the podcast, I had all my tabs up. Now I'm like having to go find everything, on the fly.
Really? Okay. Well, I'm going to go directly to the source itself because that's what professionals do, I guess. And so there's that, and then there's this movie called Together, and then there's also Lilia Forever, and then there's wow, this is struggling here because they're not Holding My Heart. Holding My Heart is the 4th film. I think there's only 6 of these, even.
Well, there's a 2 on 1 disc. There's a Container, and then there's Mammoth, and then We Are the Best, which is his most recent.
We got through them all.
Which I've seen. I own We Are the Best, which is a film.
That's the one I recognize the most.
Yeah.
I don't want to. I did get to watch the first 3 films in this box set, and based off of the first 3 films alone, I want this box set. They were 3. I watched them back to back to back, and were just stunningly well done movies. Like, I was kind of bowled over by how amazing they were. Show Me Love is a film. It's a coming of age film, which I'm always a big sucker for. It's a coming of age LGBTQ plus film done in 1998. All of his films, these are all Swedish films, so obviously subtitles. Subtitles are your friend. Don't be afraid of them. It's based off of this young teenage girl trying to explore, her sexuality and trying to come to terms with who she is as a person and all those kind of stuff. Really great coming of age things that you've seen in many films before, but this felt really genuine, really authentic. She falls for this other young girl who's also trying to figure those things out as well. Really, really great film. I just absolutely adored it. And then the second film in the set, which is Together, is also really good. It's set in I believe a commune in 1975, where one of the residents has to have his sister and her children come live with him, and these other people in this kind of liberal hippie commune, if you will, of the time. And you just see this cross section of all these different people trying to live in this one house, and you see all the conflicts and all this kind of stuff. This person's sister is also coming from a really rough and abusive relationship, so all of that baggage is in there as well. Plus, you have the children having to readjust to all of this. It bounces back and forth, but I think the film balances all those things really wonderfully well, to the point where you just get a balance of great themes. And then you get, Stephen, to third film that I watched, Lilia Forever, which I believe is probably one of the more well-known films in this set, at least from what I just gathered on Letterboxd. This is one of the most depressing films I've ever seen.
Cool. Cool.
It's one
and I
of
know
the
you're a
movies
fan of
where,
them.
like,
I know you're a
where
fan of
after
them.
it, you're like, man, life is real shit, isn't it? I'm like, it's real bad. And I love I love my depressing films as much as the next lonely person staying up late at night watching movies. And it's a movie set in a non-distinct Russian geographical area about this young girl who just gets hit with every single obstacle in life that one can possibly go through. Parental abandonment, homelessness, poverty, just everything. And the film, when you think the film is done with throwing all of these life obstacles at her, it just gets worse. And the film is really one of those raw looks at just the depressive state that humanity can get to, but also the depressive state of where life can really take you if just humanity kind of abandons you. You know, like if there's just no real sense of safe haven or structure, or people not caring about other people. It's a remarkable film. It's really, really down there, but it is depressing. It's not for the faint of heart. But those three films combined for me was enough to win me over to be like, yeah, this box set's worth it. I didn't know anything about this filmmaker going into it, but these three films combined for me were just a hell of a journey that I went on.
Guys, anything to say about this filmmaker?
I don't need to go off. That's what I do.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan. Together is a super important film to me. Somebody hit me to that like 15 years ago, maybe. We Are the Best is obviously the one I've seen the most recently, and that film is really phenomenal and just super generous, and the music and the music just rules. Also, it has a lot of credibility, and that they are like very good for what they're supposed to be. And I can't say enough about the I don't know. He's such the humanity of him as a filmmaker is really impressive, and I'll be getting that box set. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, Lily of Forever, I've actually never seen, but ever since I remember when it played at TIFF long ago, the reactions to it were so over the top in the praise for that one that I actually got the Lukas Moodysson box set, the earlier box set that was UK DVD, and somehow I still have not watched it. So I got to get to that.
See, he's got the collector syndrome where you buying things and it just piles up and you're just like, I still need to watch that
especially with DVD, because
yeah.
I actually got that pretty late in the, when I was still buying DVDs regularly. And there's so many DVDs that I'm never going to get to them, because what would make me watch a DVD now?
And now it's upgraded. Yeah, now it's upgraded. So now you just, now you start again. And then you're like, 10 years from now, you're like, I still haven't watched that Blu-ray set. Now we got the 8Ks out, shit.
Yeah, who knows?
I hope not.
Yeah, that's definitely, I would say, for me, the crown gem of this slate. But there's more in there.
And I believe friends of the show, Scott Saslow and Sister Hyde, have both worked on the art on this and the design. So shout out to them. Great, looks
awesome.
great. Set looks great.
That looks fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the artwork on all these look incredible. But yeah, this is a 6-disc edition for those of you interested. And the Arrow box sets are always really solid construction wise and all that stuff. But Steven, there are some other ones in here as well.
Yeah, I know we have another kind of this is another one that's getting re-released for Arrow US that I think Eureka put out in the UK, which is the Lady Whirlwind, the double feature
yes.
with Lady Whirlwind and Hapkido. How do you say it? Hapkido.
Yes.
Okay. And so yeah, we kind of already talked about these films, I believe.
Yeah, we did. We talked about them because I think Eureka just released them earlier this year, and then Angela
maybe
Mao
3 or 4 months ago. Yeah.
Yeah. And so these are the only difference I saw with this release and then the Eureka release. I think there's a 2022 Angela Mao interview that I couldn't find listed here for this set here, but everything else seemed to translate over in terms of special features. Like they got all the commentaries, which is there's 3 commentaries on disc 1 and there's 2 commentaries on disc 2. So you got plenty of people talking about these movies.
Yeah. There's also an alternative slipcover if you're interested.
Yes, for Lady Whirlwind.
Yeah.
An exclusive Arrow slipcover, I think.
Yeah. Original art slipcover optional for the Arrow store. So if you guys are interested in that, you can go to the Arrow store and get the exclusive slipcover there. One of the other releases we have here is I don't think this is the same thing that was. Who else put out Sonny Chiba stuff? Was that
was
Eureka
Shout Factory.
also?
That was Shout Factory. They're putting out a Sonny Chiba box set, but none of the films that are in this box set, like The Executioner and The Executioner 2, are not in the Shout Factory box set. So if you get that and get this, you got yourself a Sonny Chiba marathon.
You got a Sonny Chiba revival going on right now. It's starting now, guys. It's crazy. That's what we love about physical media, man. You never know when somebody's about to get a revival. And it all happens at the same time. Like one label, and it's just not even one label. It's like 3 different labels are like suddenly putting out all the, like you said earlier, Oliver Reed stuff or all the Charles Bronson stuff, and you're like, there must have been a race to getting this stuff out.
Well, how long ago did he die? It was relatively recently, right? Like, is this kind of a tribute thing?
I think. Sonny Chiba? I think he passed away. Was it last year? I think it may have even as recent as last year.
Yeah. Well, I think. What else do we have?
There is the Dunwich Horror.
Yes.
And this has gotten a release in a couple of ways. I think it was part of a Shout Factory double feature at one point. That's long been out of print here in the U.S. And I also think, Arrow's putting it out in both the UK and the US. So it looks like they've got the rights back.
And Canada. Don't forget them Canadians.
And Canada. They are.
We're here with them right now. Let's not leave them out.
I know. Let's not screw this one up.
It does say all 3 regions here. Yeah. So that would be rude.
It would be very rude of me. Is that it for the slate?
I think that's it for the Arrow stuff.
Did Arrow ever release anything in Canada and not in the United States?
I don't know,
I don't
man.
think so.
We need to look into that because they need to. They need to leave out everybody else and just put Canada, have a Canadian release.
I can tell you, there have been Canadian releases of movies that haven't gotten Blu-ray releases here.
Yeah.
That has always gotten me. Where we've only gotten DVD releases here. Xavier Dolan's film Mommy, I think, was one of those. Don't quote me on that. Because I feel like, that never got. No, it did get a Blu-ray release here, but it took them a while.
Wrong.
So, I was way wrong.
Cannibal Girls. I don't know if you guys know that film, but that one got a good Blu-ray in Canada and just a DVD in the U.S.
He keeps a list of them. He's like, we got this one, guys.
Yeah, we got it.
Blu-ray. We got. That's great.
We did get it. Yeah, I know that's happened a few times. It happens with the UK and the US way more. There's definitely still a few films in that regard. This one I know I'll get right. Startup is a movie that I think is incredible. Came out in 2013. Got a Blu-ray release by 20th Century Fox, of all people, in the UK. That has never gotten a Blu-ray release here.
Is that the
throw that out?
Who's the actor in that?
That is Jack O'Connell.
Jack O'Connell, yeah.
And Ben Mendelsohn's in the film as well, Rupert Friend. It's a great. I think it's a great film.
Was it a prison film or something?
It was a prison film.
Yeah.
Jack O'Connell and Ben Mendelsohn, I think, are father and son, and they end up in the same prison. A lot of drama there, as one can imagine.
You didn't learn from me, boy? Damn.
Stuff like that. Well, it does play on the idea that, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
Yeah.
Sins of the father are visited on the son and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah.
All right.
So moving from Arrow, where are we going now, Stephen?
Indicator.
Okay, we'll go to Indicator.
Okay. He's never happy with my choice.
You can never be 100% on anything,
I don't know what you want from me. You're asking me, and I'm telling you where to go, and then you're just like, whatever.
Whatever. We got there. But we've got, so Powerhouse, Indicator. We've got a group of 4 films. No box sets this month or anything like that. But we've got 4 movies. We have Freud, starring one of my all-time favorite actors, and I think one of the greatest actors of all time, in Montgomery Clift. Directed by John Huston. This actually got a Kino release recently that I actually bought. But next film is The Night of the Following Day. That's a mouthful.
It's not what were they going for there? I mean, I know we have The Day After Tomorrow, but This is like they were like, God, we
just
need a
made you
title like
confused.
that, and they were like, the day further
so it's not,
beyond.
It's not tonight. It's not
yesterday's
tomorrow. It's tomorrow. They could have just said tomorrow night. It would have been the same.
I don't know. They were going for something there. I don't.
Yeah, they were going for something else, but this is a more direct title: "Death of a Gunfighter." You don't get much
That's
more
the
direct than
opposite.
that.
Yeah, very
And then
blunt.
something a little more poetic. "They Might Be Giants," which is, I believe, a quote from Miguel de Cervantes.
Isn't that a
Don
football
Quixote.
movie? Ain't that a football movie? A Christian football movie?
I have no idea.
I don't know.
I have no idea. But
I feel like there's a football movie, like a Christian themed football movie called "They Are Giants" or "We Are" something like that. I don't know.
We Are the Titans.
No, I know what Remember the Titans.
Remember the Titans?
Is. That's different. That's not a Christian movie.
That's a Disney football movie.
That's a Disney flick. Yeah,
Yeah. But
that's the one I watched in middle school like 1,000 times.
They showed it to us so much as well. Still a classic.
That and Stomp the Yard. I don't know why.
I don't know how those two connect with one another. But okay.
Sports. Kids can watch it.
I guess competitive dancing in the street is a sport of some kind.
I don't know.
But what did you think of this slate, Stephen? Did you get to see any of these?
I did not. Unfortunately,
Okay.
I don't really have anything to say about these. I do
Luckily
think
for
they.
you.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. I spent my time in Italian land.
Yeah,
this week.
I did get to watch all 4 of these.
Of course you did.
Of course I did.
But before you get into your thing, John and David, anything
let's
here?
let them go in there before I
stand
go on a
out?
tirade.
I think aren't at least 2 of these, or maybe all of them, are already like Kino Lorber Blu-rays.
Yes. I think only one of them may not be, but I know Freud is. I know They Might Be Giants is. I have to check the others. But yeah, they do. They seem to be. That happens often. Kino will come out with either
we know
before or
Kino's
after.
been making a lot of deals lately, so it's like
But what I think all of these may also be, or at least some of them are maybe Universal titles, and Universal seems to share their catalog with everyone. That seems to be the case.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen Freud. I saw that at like a John Huston retrospective once, which is kind of like a not the most exciting film, as you can imagine from the subject matter. It's like very cerebral, but I remember liking it.
it's nothing like the David Cronenberg Dangerous Method movie.
Yeah,
No,
similar
not the
facial
same.
hair. But yeah, that came out right after Montgomery Clift and John Huston did The Misfits, so they're I kind of think of those as being paired together. I don't think I've seen any others. David, have you seen any of those?
No, Freud is like this glaring omission in my John Huston knowledge. I think there's like only a few of his films I haven't seen. That's one of them. And yeah, I haven't seen the other 3.
The Night of the Following Day, or whatever it's called, is I just remember that's like a Marlon Brando film right before he did The Godfather, like 2 years or something, 3 years before.
Yeah, it came out like 1969, so it was I think it was even before he did Last Tango in Paris. It felt like it was in that corridor of like his 60s films that aren't really not really well known, I guess. I don't know.
No, there's a very
received.
weird period, like Reflections in a Golden Eye, John Huston.
Yeah. Then there was the one that he directed. It's his only
One Eye Jacks.
One Eye Jack there.
Yeah, One Eye Jacks, the Western.
Yeah.
Which is around the same time.
Which I think is having like a bit of a renaissance now with the Film Foundation's streaming platform they're doing, right? I think that was their most recent sort of thing. I saw like a Scorsese piece about it.
Oh yeah, Scorsese wrote an article. He's it's going to get around, guys. Even if it's something about Marvel movies or it's his stuff's always getting around.
Yeah.
I think I remember because Scorsese did that Journey Through American Films. That's not the title. I'm paraphrasing it. But I'm pretty sure he mentioned One Eye Jacks when he was going through westerns. And that was probably like the first time I ever heard about One Eye Jack. And then Criterion had put out the Blu-ray a couple of years ago, and then when I bought it and I watched it, but this was a Marlon Brando film. The Night of the Following Day. I guess he didn't have a favorable time making this movie. Apparently, he clashed with the director a lot. Hubert Cornfield was his name. Apparently, he didn't even
probably
like the
never
ending of the
directed
movie.
another movie again after working for Brando. Probably
he didn't even like the ending of the movie. Apparently, he had a much darker ending. But this film I did get to see. It's a bit of a heist film, in the sense that it's about a group of people. Marlon Brando's one of them, where they are. It's not a heist. It's a ransom kidnapping movie. I don't know what I was saying. They kidnap like this really rich person's daughter and hold her for ransom, and things get complicated because the people doing the job just don't get along with one another, and they're like there's backstabbing going on and all this kind of stuff. Things don't go exactly according to plan. It reminds me kind of like a you like the Asphalt Jungle or some of those types of like heist movies where it's like the heist happens at the very beginning, and then like the real story is
So Reservoir
trying to
Dogs.
figure out
Reservoir
the rest
Dogs,
of it.
yeah.
Yeah, like Reservoir Dogs. And then Marlon Brando's in this film. Rita Moreno is in the film. And apparently this was like Rita Moreno's like first time in like I think 6 or 7 years she had come back to acting like on screen because after West Side Story she was just typecasted in that same role and she just didn't want to do movies anymore. So apparently she came back to do a much different role in this film. And yeah, it's a good it's an okay film. It's a little dull for a movie that's supposed to be like a thriller. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed seeing Marlon Brando on screen in a role. I mean, I'll watch him do anything, even if he's not really looking like he's interested in what he's doing. And I'm always down for Marlon Brando. I think he's one of the best and one of my all-time favorites.
It sounds like it kind of reminds me of a similar situation that within another Indicator release where you had that movie Hoffman with Peter Sellers, where we know that Peter Sellers basically didn't want that movie out.
Oh yeah,
like
he tried to buy like the negative of that and have it destroyed, and then the director was like, "We already sent this out. we can't get it."
So it kind of makes me think like Indicator's trying to hit into this area, this obscure area where
right here.
Yeah, of course you do. Of course
I do.
You're like a damn vending machine. But it's you're like. It's like they're trying to tap into this thing of we're going to release movies where people involved didn't want to put it out.
Or like it's going to be famous actors in movies that you probably didn't know they were in or even ever heard of these movies because it's not, it's not one of the more famous works. It's one of the more unwatched films because maybe it's not as good of a film or there's complications with it, all that kind of stuff. But that's the beauty of discovering this stuff.
It's the stories behind it that make it interesting. It's just like they try to put out Ishtar. But then that had to get canceled because
talk about behind the scenes issues with that.
Yeah.
Apparently Marlon Brando was so difficult to work with on this movie because he just didn't want to do it anymore that like they wanted to get a shot of him smiling to end the film and he just wouldn't even do it. To the point where like
CG if only they had George Lucas.
I guess so.
If
only
they
could like
that
CGI
thing, that smile
stuff,
on
but
his face.
apparently they couldn't. Like he would just make funny faces the whole time, so that they couldn't get the shot. And then like the director decided we're just gonna like get like a small sliver of like one of these shots to get it to match up. And
this
that's how we're
sounds
gonna
like
end
we
the
need
movie.
a movie about the making of this movie.
That's like every Brando
movie
was like that. He'd like take off his pants so you can't do wide shots.
Oh yeah, what is that? The score?
Yeah.
Oh, what about? I mean, what's it? The Island of Dr. Moreau.
Yeah, well, they did make a movie about that.
They did make a documentary about that. I mean, there's also things about The Godfather. I think where he didn't know his lines or something. There's Notorious.
Oh, yeah.
I think it was the same. I think it was the same thing with Apocalypse Now, where he showed up having not even read the script or something like that, and he showed up like way overweight at the time and all that kind of stuff. I mean, Hearts of Darkness. Watch Hearts of Darkness, and I'll tell you about the making of that movie.
I was wondering when that inner ear technology that I guess a lot of older actors sort of quietly use, where they can feed you the lines, like became pervasive. Because I guess the Apocalypse Now thing is they have like all this stuff on cards that were just off screen, or at least that's the thing. Like it's like the old Tonight Show or something. But like, I imagine if the inner ear thing was available at the time, he probably just would have gone with that.
Yeah, probably. I mean,
that would. I don't know how they do it. I mean, I know that's their thing, but if I had to listen to somebody say something in my ear and then have to repeat it, like especially if it's something where you're really having to do like a monologue or something like that, I don't see how they do it. That takes some skill. That's that, But
yeah,
Brando,
I
yeah,
think,
Brando was easy to work with. That's the moral of the story.
yeah, I guess.
Super
But,
easy to work with.
Yeah, apparently, I don't even think the director. Like, I don't know if he even finished. I don't know. There's an uncredited director on here. Yeah, but moving on, I guess to another title, Death of a Gunfighter. I do like a good old western. This is starring Richard Widmark, who was a great actor from, um, Hollywood's golden age. Just fantastic actor. One of my, one I really really like. This was another film that had behind the scenes issues to the point where the original director Robert Totten, I think, was fired when they were making it, and Don Siegel came on to finish directing it, but Don Siegel didn't feel that he directed enough of the film to take the credit for it. So I think he got credited as Alan Smithy, which is the pseudonym for directors who don't want their name on something. And we talked about that before here on the show. But yeah, that was one of I think the first times that was done. I think they were going to go with Alan Smith, but apparently there was a director named Alan Smith in the DGA or something. So they were just like, "I got to make Alan Smithy." But this is a western from 1969, like I said, starring Richard Widmark and Lena Horne. And Richard Widmark is a marshal who is kind of towards the end of his career. And the people in the town that he's a marshal are just kind of fed up with him. They don't really like him anymore. They don't really want him around. They're trying to get him to resign. They're trying to get him to quit, and he just doesn't want to. They're to the point where they're like, we got to get him out of here by any means necessary. So so he's trying to like kind of kick back against that. It's based on a novel of the same name. I dug it. I like these kind of, hard-nosed westerns from the late '60s when the western went through a little bit of a change in the '60s, and you kind of had to adjust to make them a little more gritty, and that's what I kind of liked about this one for a little bit. But yeah, I know, Steven, you didn't get a chance to see it, but
yeah, I don't have nothing to say, man. Thanks for helping point that out. Cool.
Yeah, I like the saying here. Marshall Patch was the character's name. He lived by the law of the gun. Now the town used it to destroy him. Cool.
Yeah. You know what's cool is my cat's about to get knocked off this desk.
Why is he
he's about to knock my Canadian International Picture Blu-rays off it, and I'm about to knock him off.
Mm-hmm. It's
see you guys.
Oh, what's your cat's name?
He's
Loki.
Nice.
Goes right with his mischief, as you can see. That's why we named him that, because he gets into everything. But he's amazing. He's a good cat. He just he wants attention.
Yeah, you usually
all the
put
time
him away during the show, so I don't know why you decided.
Well,
to roll the dice on
the
this
thing
one.
is I used to have a big enclosure here for him, and we got rid of it. So now he has this whole room to himself. So I have to hope that he's gonna not bother me. And as you can see, that's not working right now. But it's okay. He's not chewing up wires.
Taking a chance.
As long as he's not chewing up wires, we're okay.
Yeah, we're good. We're good. But let's move on to They Might Be Giants, because they might.
How
be
do you
giants
not know if they're giants?
Fascinating. Well, it's. I mean,
because if they're big,
it works into it. Because so the Don Quixote story. People who know the Don Quixote story will kind of understand the title of this movie and the gist of this movie. This is This was already been put out by Kino. The only one of this slate that hadn't been put out by Kino is The Night of the Following Day. So all these have been available for a while. But so this film is directed by Anthony Harvey from 1971 and stars George C. Scott as well as Joanne Woodward. And this is a quasi Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson story, but not in the way that you'd think. So Joanne Woodward plays a Dr. Watson and George C. Scott plays a Sherlock Holmes, but he's someone who thinks he's Sherlock Holmes because he's kind of has something, wrong in terms of with mental health. She's a psychiatrist who works at a hospital and deals with people with mental disabilities and all this kind of stuff. And he becomes one of her patients, and he and her go on this kind of not real Sherlock Holmes type of detective story adventure. And it's him just kind of chewing up the scenery as this, mentally wild and just ambitious and and like trying to find clues where these aren't really clues, but you're just going along for the ride with him the whole time. It's based off of a play, so it's very dialogue heavy, feels very play like. The back and forth between he and Joan Woodward, I think, is very, very good. I enjoyed the film a lot. I like George C. Scott, especially in the 1970s. At this time, he was just in a lot of different movies, doing a lot of different things. Of course, he had won an Oscar for Patton, I think, before this movie had come out. Now, he, of course, was in Doctor Strangelove, well before this film came out. Later on, he'd be in Changeling.
Yeah.
He'd be in Paul Schrader's Hardcore, completely different movie than any of these. I really did dig this movie a lot. I thought it was really, really good.
It's a cool concept. I like it. Yeah.
Yeah, I initially thought when I heard the premise that it was going to be a straight up Sherlock Holmes story. It's like, no, we're going to make it modern, or at least modern for the times, but to just play on this Don Quixote story, whereas
we're gonna turn Sherlock Holmes into like Bill Murray from What About Bob or something, and then
kind of similar to that.
and then just go on this journey. Which where's the What About Bob Blu-ray, by the way? I don't know if that's got where's that at? But does this sound interesting to you guys? Would you be interested in this film? I am. I'm gonna have to seek it out now.
Oh, anything with George C. Scott goes like immediately to the top of the pile for me.
Yeah, and Joanne Woodward too.
Yeah, good point.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Oh yeah.
Was you able to check out that documentary with Paul Newman?
The Ethan Hawke one?
Yeah, I still haven't watched that, but it looks fantastic. I've heard it's great.
Yeah, it is. It's really good.
Yeah, it's really, really great. I mean, I'm a big Paul Newman fan. I really, really enjoyed it. I thought it was really well done. There was nothing in it that I thought was like illuminating, but it just gave a comprehensive look at the relationship between Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward and all of its complications and positives and negatives and everything. I thought it was fantastic. I really have a new appreciation for Joanne Woodward watching that, because you didn't really know, but at the time, she was a much bigger star than him when they had first met. She was the movie star, and he was just his career was kind of just starting to get off the ground, and then that role would switch during their relationship.
Yeah, weren't they also
I'm trying to get more of her stuff.
Didn't she help I know they both had a lot of success in the theater world at the beginning of their careers. Didn't she kind of help get him, help his career take off?
I think that's where they met, was actually doing a play together in the theater world. And then that kind of skyrocketed their relationship together.
I think they had a relationship before they actually got together officially, because they were. I think Paul Newman was still married.
Paul Newman was married when they had met each other and started a relationship with one another. And they talk about that in the documentary, and how that affected the children that Paul Newman had. With his wife before Joanne Woodward, and they actually interviewed them, and I thought that was a really interesting perspective about how they viewed their father. Great documentary. I hope that gets a physical release.
That would be cool.
Just talking about just in general. I know it was done on HBO, so there's a chance. Warner Brothers, don't be cheap. I know you're going through changes.
Don't be cheap.
I know you're going through changes like the rest of us, but
all right.
Yeah, so that's everything, right? At least we're going.
Well, I mean, there's other stuff.
Stuff.
There's one interesting thing I want to bring up before we head out is Mondo Macabro has this release of Bollywood horror films.
Oh, cool!
Which I think is a really cool thing, because we're not getting a lot of Bollywood releases,
like a box set.
So yeah, they got this it's a box set, and it's got looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 films, or no, 6 films. Don't ask me to pronounce them all. If Andrew can find it, he might be able to help.
I gotta find it before I can.
But it's a box set of first collection of films to be released on Blu-ray and packed with extra features, interviews, 80-page booklet, and it's all Bollywood horror films. We got from 2006. You found them? Okay, go ahead. Good, you saved me.
Yeah, Aatma, Atma.
The Ghost. Right? I can say the English version. The Ghost.
Purana Madir.
Which is
Parani Haveli, oh boy, Takana, Verana, Bandawaza, and I think that's it.
That's
Steven.
it. That's
Yeah,
it.
and
And
there's a
they
special
range
features
from the
on it.
80s to present day, or to the early 2000s. But
And there's an
I
80-page
just
book.
yeah, and I just think that this is great. That I mean, I haven't seen any of these films, but just to get more, like I said, I don't even think I have any Bollywood in my collection. I have some Bengali films. I have like your Satyajit Rays and some other things like that, but I don't have any Bollywood, films. So
Yeah, the
I'm
closest.
going to be jumping all over this one. I
The
think.
closest he did to Bollywood was The Music Room, was kind of like his version of a Bollywood film. He was kind of the unique thing with him is that he was very much not Bollywood, where his films were rather westernized.
Yeah, but yeah. Anything about that you guys find interesting? You into any Bollywood?
No, I'm like, I wish I knew more. I'll pick up that box set. Sounds amazing.
That's the same with me. I really have not watched any Bollywood really.
It's also has
John.
has Mondo Macabro ever released a box set before? That seems like a new thing.
Yeah, that's another one.
That's the other thing too, is I'm not really sure that they've ever really done a box set that I'm aware of. So yeah, I mean, this could be a lot of firsts here for me, and for them, yeah, if they're getting into the box set game. So that's exciting. That's an exciting thing, and but that's I think that we'll go ahead and stop there. That's a good round, almost a little over 2 hours here. I think that's a good place to stop. And guys, thanks for hanging with us. You didn't have to hang for the whole show, but these guys like movies. They wanna talk about movies. So, but guys, thanks for. We hope you had a decent time.
Yeah, it was super fun. Thank you guys
much.
for having us. It was a total treat.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys.
Definitely. And of course, anytime you guys want to come back and talk Canadian international picture releases, just let us know, man. And we'd love if there's a specific one you're like, okay, we got to come on and talk about this one. Just message me, man. We'll do it again.
Oh, right on. We appreciate it.
Well, we appreciate you guys. And before we leave, what's if anybody wants to, of course, find Canadian international pictures releases, and if they want to maybe even reach out to you guys, what are the best places to go?
Yeah, you can find us at Canadian International Pictures on Facebook, and then our Twitter is CIP Pictures, and then it's the same. It's we're CIP Releasing on Instagram.
And John,
we're like very much we do everything socially as CIP. So I don't know.
Okay, I didn't know if you had maybe your own separate account or something. Yeah,
I haven't used my Twitter account for a long time, but it's actually CI Pictures. There's only one P in there.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you.
It is CI Pictures, and there is.
We'll put a link in the description. There
is a Canadian International Pictures website. I don't know if you guys wanted to promote that.
Right, yeah, it's Canadian-international.com. And you might be able to get there if you go to cipictures.com too. I can't remember if we have a redirect from there or not, but
there's a redirect link to Vinegar Syndrome's website and directly to the Canadian International Pictures place on there, where it has all your releases that anybody can buy and whatnot.
Yeah, I guess we should also flag for people that, like, going into the Black Friday sale and everything, our first 6 or 7 releases will be on sale, and there's a few of those are down to like 200, 300 slips left. Like Kid Brother, Don't Let the Angels Fall. I think it's under 200 already. So get on them.
I've been watching a lot of these like a hawk. So like every day, when I wake up, it's like, we go check to see how many are left. I'm a procrastinator collector, so I always wait until it gets down to a number that makes me panic, so I can panic buy.
More fun to be one of the last people to buy it.
Totally.
It's more fun to have a stress-induced experience than just do something without stress.
See, I used to do that. I did the opposite for a while there. I would pre-order everything I wanted, and then I realized I don't have any damn money. I can't pre-order everything.
I think you realize that. Well, it all depends though, because like sometimes that strategy works, where like you wait, and you can wait, and there'll be copies there for a long time. And then other times, depending on the title, it sells out in a week, you know?
Yeah, I tend to only pre-order when I think something's going to be like super, like a hot seller.
Yeah,
you
I
know,
like to check to see how things are moving. If titles are moving, if it's selling quick, you got to jump on it. And then if you miss out, you end up having to pay whatever, wherever.
Yeah, I ain't doing
eBay.
that again. Not doing that again.
eBay.
But yeah, that please go please if you're not aware yet of Canadian International Pictures, listen to this, get excited, go check out their stuff.
A lot of the early stuff still has those slip covers if you covet those slip covers like many of us do.
I think what is it? Buster Keaton Rides Again's the only one that doesn't have slip
and Canadian
available?
International, and then Forbidden Love is the other
Forbidden Love.
No,
yes.
Amityville. Yeah, Amityville sold that as well.
Oh, did that one sell too?
It sold out. Wow!
Hell yeah!
Congratulations on that.
Yeah.
Oh
Nice.
yeah!
Thank you.
The standard's down to under 300 copies.
Yeah,
great,
no, a
guys.
lot of
It's great.
seasonal juice around that one, and it's a fun set.
Yeah, definitely. All right, well, Andrew, tell them where you're at. They already know, but go ahead and tell them anyway.
Alrighty. I am on Twitter at Kebzilla06, and then on our YouTube channel, Chasing Labels.
And you can find me on Facebook, Stephen Billings. You can also find me at the other Chasing Labels pages, whether it be our Twitter, our Instagram, or you can find us on our Facebook group at Chasing Labels Podcast. You can find the audio for the podcast on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and other places. Thanks again for listening, and hey, keep on watching them movies.
I know I will.